For those who are new or unfamiliar with my content, I would like to give a disclaimer. Slow Damage has an extremely self-destructive main character, and his nonchalant comments about his lack of concern for himself does trigger my nervous laughter. If you'd like to view my content that covers darker and triggering subjects like this one, please consume it responsibly and know that this content is not for minors. I want to emphasize that if you experience any of the severe symptoms that Towa does, I highly encourage that you seek professional help rather than view this playthrough. Good evening. Welcome back to Slow Damage, part 20! If you hear a little bit of odd humming in the background, I have a bit of, there's some people over, let's just put it that way. So if you hear just a tad bit of buzzing, apologies, hopefully you don't hear it, but, there's that. Okay. Last we left off, Towa had well, he didn't decide to. Madarame decided for him. Madarame kicked Towa. Not kick, well, he also kicked Towa. Oh, this is terrible. I'm sorry. Madarame told Towa to get out. And so Towa said, okay, I guess I'll go. And, Towa instead felt, a ridiculous amount of anxiety. I'm pretty sure this is some form of a panic attack. Also, Towa has remembered things which has caused a bit of a mental break, honestly. Understandable. So, so Towa is now in an extremely fragile, I don't want to say fragile state, I think it's more of a panic state. Because now, like I mentioned before, Towa feels very displaced. He feels uncomfortable. He doesn't think he belongs in this place of peace and safety, and feels far more comfortable with Madarame, who is just like completely unpredictable, extremely violent. But on the other hand, reflects Towa very well, and also meets Towa's carnal needs very well. His actual like healthy, physical, emotional, mental needs, a little different, but when it comes down to it, to his core, Madarame fits Towa's desires. It's kind of like it's kind of the opposite of what has been occurring so far, where Towa is bringing out the dark desires of other people, their honest feelings, etc., etc., and it causes them to like lose their minds, lose control, panic, etc. Instead, Madarame is doing that to Towa, because Towa, usually, as he said, is the one psychologically dominant. But this time, Towa is buck wild. He has no idea. He is like lost. He is panicked. He is confused. He is stressed out. And now that he remembers a decent chunk of the first the first traumatic incident where he lost his memories. I don't want to say, well, I'll say first, as in like the first one where we're being informed of. Now that Towa is remembering things, he is losing his mind. I think that's the easiest way to put it. So let's see. Well, what this round has in store for us. I've been very you know, it's funny. I should be very antagonistic towards Madarame, but as a character, I find Madarame like insanely fascinating. He makes me so nervous. He and Towa really do, like, honestly, if I'm to like be real, they absolutely like belong together. They're both crazy. But that's a discussion for another time. Anyway, let's go. If this route makes me cry, I won't be surprised. The deeper I get into this game, the more I cry. So, okay, let's get to it before I lose my nerve. Okay. Let's go, kids. Oh, great. Okay, so where are we going? There's no need. I have no business. Why is it sending me here? Oh! Oh? He's not even giving me choices anymore. See, we're exploring, but it's not even like... Like, I'm getting locked out. That's crazy. Ooh. Okay, let's go. So it gave me options, but Towa is stopping me from moving. Which has never happened before. As I walked down a narrow alleyway, I tripped over something. I stumbled but managed to regain my balance. Huh? Is that... Hold on a sec. I must have tripped over his outstretched legs in the darkness. He seemed to be drunk. He pushed himself up with both hands, then walked over. These NPCs. No, I'm busy. Like, I don't have time for you, NPC, sir. He invaded my personal space and clapped me on the shoulder. Oh, you about to die. But it was that moment that I realized. His eyes were sharp as a tack. He was only pretending to be drunk. I knocked his hand away and tried to walk off. Uh-oh. Then out of nowhere, he lunged at me. Oh boy. I like how the title spoiled me. Woo, go baby. I dodged and buried my fist in his gut. I'm liking this spicy Towa though. Towa like remembering that he actually liked fighting. I'm down with the business. That sounds terrible. Instead of him just like taking it, you know what I'm saying? He doubled over. I swept his feet out from under him and he hit the ground. As he lay on his back, I stomped on his stomach, then bent over to look him in the eye. Ooh! Yeah, who sent? He gritted his teeth and turned his face away. Since he had no intention of telling me, I pulled my foot away from his gut and kicked him in the jaw. Ooh, girl. He arched his back, then curled into fetal position. After that, I lost interest and continued on my way. He was probably sent to spy on me in disguise, though I couldn't be sure whether Tono or Sakaki was behind it. It doesn't really matter, they're both crap. So, as I walked, I felt a dark thrill in my chest. Now this was right for me. The thrill of inflicting violence, and the thrill of receiving it in return. This was what I wanted, the sensation of my blood frothing in my veins. I recalled Madarame's wicked grin. As much as I hated to admit it, I belonged with him. He was the only person who could offer me this life. Balling my fist, I stalked down the alleyway. Just then, something akin to pale flower petals fluttered down in front of my face. Snow? I looked up and realized that snow was falling. Ooh. It's time, baby. Only then did I realize just how cold it was outside. But I ignored it and kept walking. As I approached the bridge, I could feel the vibrant city life in the air. Not long now until I reached my destination. Hurry. Okay, we're hurrying, honey. I'm hurrying. Okay, just a little farther. Hold on. I'm gonna click everything because not here either. No. No. Oh. No. He's just saying no to me. I'm just being mean. Wrong way. Okay. Let's go. Oh man. Before now, I tended to ignore the hustle and bustle of the city, but as I approached the street, the noise came rolling in thickly. Voices, 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 grating on my nerves. My pace quickened in an effort to escape it. Okay. I wonder why it's giving me options, but like I'm just curious as to why it would do that, but I think it's giving me like the semblance of choice, but in reality I don't have one. I cut through the loud clamor of District D and into District C. As I closed the distance between myself and Madarame, I could feel my restlessness grow stronger and stronger. Willing the discomfort to settle, I sucked in a lungful of cold air and silently continued my nighttime excursion. Okay. Almost. Have no business. Okay. He's like, no. Sorry. Towa's like, we're not going there. Alright, here we go. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. As I was walking, I heard speedy footsteps approaching from behind.
Towa!
Oh gosh, why did they have to follow me? I feel so bad! Then someone shouted my name. I looked over my shoulder to find Rei and Taku standing there. They were both out of breath.
Towa, どこへ行くの?
Oh gosh, not the snow. Not the snow! Not the snow motif. I was like, the moment the snow starts falling, we're about to get dramatic in here. Not like this game isn't already dramatic, but we're double dramatic. Okay, let's go. Let's go, everybody. It's K-drama time. Rei's tone was pleading.
散歩だよ。
For a while, I'm not coming back. He said,
でも、そっちはデスマッチエリアの方向よね。デスマッチ嫌いでしょ。なのにどうして行くの?
That's what he thought. But
マダラメに会いに行くの?
Yes! Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just like, come on, baby. My silence made his brow furrow deeply. I glanced at them, then turned and started walking. He's just like, I'm gonna go.
ダメ、トワ、どうして、なんで行こうとするの? 行っちゃダメよ!
I feel so sad. I'm so sad. I could hear their anguish screams. But as I kept walking, it faded into the distance. Their desperation could no longer reach me. I'd realized who I truly was. I was not the kind of person who belonged with them. I belonged somewhere else. Oh, okay. Is Madarame even still here? Like, what if he just like dipped? You know, he's like, okay, bye. Slipping through the shadows of narrow alleyways, I made my way through the ghost town until I arrived at a familiar building. From the outside, it was hard to tell whether he was even in there. Maybe he had moved his hideout elsewhere. I entered the building and climbed the stairs. Then I came to a stop outside the room I remembered to be Madarame's. Before I opened the door, I took a deep breath. Reflexively, I swallowed. Then I twisted the knob, and the door opened. Well, there's still stuff here. I walked in and stopped short. The smoke is blue. The first thing that entered my vision was Madarame. Oh no, this can't be good. Just like the day I left, he was lounging in his chair. His arms were folded, and he was smiling, almost like he had known I was coming. As I stood there frozen, he cocked his head smugly.
冒険は楽しかったか?
His smoke swayed slowly. His tone suggested he had always known I would come back. And he was right. He knew full well that their world wouldn't be enough for me. Did he kick me out on purpose to make me see it? Oh, well, this is a sad. Rage exploded inside me. Until this very moment, I was so eager to be with him again. But now that I was here, I didn't know how to feel anymore. This chapter, sorry, before I can, because I think it's about to go down right now. Before, before this, they were literally like setting up Towa to be this person who very much like lacked a lot of emotion. And so now that we've come to Madarame, all Towa feels is like he feels emptiness and rage. And I'm like, makes a lot of sense. Because from a person like Towa who's very like screwed up, this would make a lot of sense. Because now also he's displaced and Towa doesn't like it. But when he tries to stay with Rei and Taku, he just feels extremely panicked and anxious. So it's just like, well, I have to be with Madarame. So, and now he's here, and now he's mad. So I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Time and time again, his arrogance suggested to me that he thought he could control me. But most infuriating of all, I walked right into it every time. Gritting my teeth, I charged at him. Woo! With all my strength, I swung my fist, but of course he dodged easily, then punched back. I hit the ground hard, and a moment later, he climbed on top of me. Oh gosh, here we go. I tried to push him off, but he didn't budge. He grinned down at me.
そろそろ戻ってくるだろうとは思っていたが、なかなか面白いタイミングだな。
Yeah, okay. He grabbed my hand, brought it to his lips, and bit down on one of my... Okay. My fault for assuming he'd be just a tad tender.
もうすっかり思い出したんだろう。お前はこっち側の人間なんだってこと。
Yeah, he did.
お前が欲しいのは楽しい友達ごっこか。違うだろう。
Even if he does want it, he no longer feels comfortable. And I think that's the main issue here.
痛みと苦しみ。互いの皮膚に牙を突き立てて血をすすり合うような。そういう興奮。
Okay. I mean, that's pretty spicy. I'm like, it's just like, but also that is like a life of essentially violence. To live, like a very, Madarame said, blood, a bloody life, I guess. They use that kind of term / metaphor a lot in these kinds of psychological stories. It's like living the blood path, blood life. That sounds so dumb, but that sounds so dumb when I say it out loud. But yeah. His whisper sounded almost seductive. I squeezed my eyes shut. He was completely right too, which infuriated me all the more. Everything Madarame just said, I wanted it. I craved it. Suddenly, I couldn't breathe. My eye flew open. Madarame was grinning and throttling me with both hands. His grip closed in from both sides of my neck, constricting my throat. Oh boy. Not the foreshadowing back to that lame dude from the beginning of this round. Sorry. I tried to pry his hands off, but then he pressed his lips to mine. His tongue forced its way in, wedging my teeth open. I tried to resist, but in my struggle to breathe, I couldn't keep my mouth closed. Oh, okay. I was just like, I just wanted to see how everything was placed here. With my lips occupied, I was almost completely deprived of oxygen. Meanwhile, he teased my mouth with his tongue, like he didn't even notice. His grip slowly grew tighter and tighter until my mind started to go hazy. At this rate, I was going to pass out or die. As I ruminated on this, another sensation rose up along with the pain. Yeah, I know what that is. It was too faint to be pleasure, more of a tingle. And as it spread, the pain became comfortable, then downright enjoyable. My brain was screaming for oxygen, and yet paradoxically, sorry, you guys are gonna hate me. It felt good to have my airways blocked. As my vision went white and hazy, I felt oddly floaty. When my tongue stopped moving, he licked it with his own, then explored the rest of my mouth. The feeling made my head spin. I couldn't breathe, and it was hot. What would happen if he choked my guts out? I was in agony, and it felt so good. I wanted more. But just then, Madarame let go. Reflexively, my lungs gasped for oxygen, and I coughed hard. I'd experienced my fair share of choking during sex, but before now! Okay. Something about the way Madarame did it was different. As I gasped for breath, he started roughly fondling. Yeah, that's what it did. See you in a bit, y'all. He unbuckled my belt and yanked my pants off along with my underwear. I was still recovering from the choke, so my reaction was delayed. Oh yeah, here we go. Before I could stop him, he spread my legs wide and pressed. Yeah. Oh boy. Still hadn't caught my breath, and now he was forcing it right out of me again. Single thought rose to the forefront of my hot and heavy mind. I was right. This is where I belong. I didn't want warm affection. I wanted to be thrown around by a vicious storm. Now that I am reunited with Madarame, there's no going back to the old me. The music's back. Okay, here we go. Discussion time. I slowly turned my head, looking for a certain something. He was lying forgotten on the floor, a short distance away. Oh! My gaze was pointed at the collar and chain, the wretched device that had once kept me trapped here. But now,
戻ったら外すと言ったのを忘れたか。
Now, like, that's kind of spicy. Like he said, I know you ain't gonna leave no more. Oh, girl. Mom, I'm scared. Sorry. Madarame's like very cunning. Like I was, but you know what? I take that back. Madarame, very honest. You know, the cunning characters are like Tono and Sakaki. Because Madarame is actually like, the way he thinks may seem kind of sinister, but again, it's like he does this because he knows truly Towa. He truly knows what Towa desires, if that makes sense, right? Like he truly knows. So this is why this chapter / this whole relationship is very conflicting, because us as the outsiders like feel like it's like not correct, but Towa tells us the entire chapter that he's like everything else feels wrong and that he and Madarame together feel correct, even though it enrages him that Madarame has such control over him. So this chapter was written really well. Sorry, I'm not even done, and I'm just like, this is good. The writing is good. The writing for Madarame and Towa is good. And I feel like the story had been building up to this point because you know, they're like Towa doesn't really feel pleasure through intimacy, like positive intimacy. He finds violence to be intimacy. So let's continue. Belatedly, I realized what he meant was I went back to the old me. The cut of my neck started to ache, so I reached up to touch it. It was scabbed over and about halfway healed. I looked up at Madarame. Silently, our eyes met. Just then, I felt a vibration through the floor. It's the phone! It was coming from my coat. I tried to get up, but fell back to my knees. My body was too tired to move. Madarame rose to his feet, grabbed my coat, and pulled out my phone. Of course, it's right. I feel so bad! I feel so bad! Because they have no idea, but like also at the same time, like Taku probably does. Like if Taku knew Towa this whole time, he definitely knows Madarame. So anyway, let's continue. When he handed it to me, I checked the screen. Oh, it's the second. Okay. Oh, really? It really only took a day. Like barely a day. Day was calling.
出ないのか。
Oh, he's really not going to answer. Without hesitation, I turned my phone off and tossed it into the floor. He chuckled at me.
来い。
Work. Sorry. When I finally got to my feet, he grabbed my arm, pulled me close, and cradled my head against his chest. As I listened to his heartbeat, I slowly closed my eye. I could never go back, nor did I want to. Slow damage. Man. Oh, where's this? What's this place? So, I went back to my life with Madarame. He started moving the hideout a lot more often. From morning until evening, he would go out by himself. And I had no intention of pressing him for details. Instead, I sat and awaited his return, though this time I wasn't chained to anything. In addition to food and drinks, the table more frequently featured booze and smokes too. I didn't know where Madarame got all this stuff, but I gladly helped myself. I slid a cigarette between my lips and lit it with the red and silver Zippo lighter. I took a long, slow drag and watched the sky change colors beyond the glassless windows. Hours upon hours of drinking, smoking, and watching the sky. Before I knew it, the pack was nearly empty, and the ashtray on the floor was full of cigarette butts. After I exhaled the last lungful of smoke, I reached out to take the bottle of booze on the table. But just then I heard a suspicious noise. The sound was faint, but the room was so quiet I could hear it loud and clear. I put the bottle back on the table and listened carefully. Sure enough, near the door, I could hear what sounded like the crunch of gravel underfoot. And the door slowly opened to reveal not Madarame, but a man I didn't recognize. He peered cautiously into the room, then stepped inside, and swiftly spotted me.
Huh? Omae?
Oh no. Instantly the blood drained from his face. He whipped his cell phone out of his jacket pocket along with a gun, which he pointed at me. Meanwhile, he used his other hand to place a call on his phone.
いました。はい、そうです。顔に傷のある男が。
Who's this guy? Hold on, he doesn't look like he belongs to any of those other two. Busted. Madarame wasn't here, so I was on my own. I contemplated what to
はい、
do.
すぐお願いします。
He hung up the phone, then stuffed it back into his pocket, all without lowering the gun.
今仲間が来るからな。動くんじゃねえぞ。
そうか。
うるせえ、喋るな。
Oh boy. Gripping the gun with both hands, he glared at me suspiciously. Wait, why would they... Okay. We froze in that position for a long time. Maybe half an hour until finally the sound of footsteps came racing up the stairs. Then the door flew open. Relieved, the gunman looked over his shoulder. It's probably Madarame. Oh, it's these three! But as it happened, I recognized these latecomers.
Yo, Towa.
Oh no, what's happening?
トワだ。
Oh no.
お久しぶりですね。
Kotaro, Mayu, and Eiji all greeted me like it was just another day. Come to think of it, I'd forgotten that they worked for the Takasato Gumi.
悪いな、Towa.
Oh, what's happening? Smirking, Kotaro jerked his chin. The guy with the gun sneered at me too. I was hoping the trio would cut me some slack, but apparently not. Just as I thought they were going to tie me up.
やっと。
あ？
Oh! Mayu grabbed both of the guy's wrists and slapped handcuffs on him.
何を？うわっ！
As the guy panicked, Mayu kicked his legs out from under him and knocked him onto the floor, then started looking around the room.
ちょうどいいのあるよ。
Like a child gleefully discovering a toy, he pointed at the collar still chained to the pillar. Oh
小
boy.
太郎、あれ取って。
ああ、エイジ、お前かよ。
Are they helping? Reluctantly, Eiji went and fetched the collar.
ありがと
Mayu took it from him and put it on the guy's neck.
おい、なんなんだよこれは。
That is not the same collar. That is not the same. The other collar was really fancy.
そのうち誰かが助けに来るだろ。
Eventually. As I watched in confusion, the three of them grinned mischievously.
実は全部知ってたんです。
Oh?
マダラメさんとお前がここにいるってこともな。
Huh? Me too. I'm like, huh? I blinked back like an idiot. Must have looked hilarious because Kotaro started laughing.
実は俺らずっとマ
Oh,
ダラ
I
メさん
hate
と
you
連絡取っ
guys.
てた
I
んだ。
hate you guys so much. I was so stressed out. And they're just like, hey, 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 hey. And I'm like, please, I could have used assistance, okay? It's very stressful. So much stress.
しかもマダラメさんが新興味へ戻ってくる前からです。
Okay, but you know what this means? I feel so relieved because if Towa really just like ditched everybody and no one was gonna help him, I would feel even worse because it means no one's on Towa's side, if that makes sense. And I feel really bad about that because like Sakaki and Tono aren't on his side either because obviously they must have staged the rebellion against Kaga, you know, and against Madarame and against Towa. And Sakaki for some reason treats Towa like nicely, quotation marks, but I don't know like why that is. We don't know yet. I don't know the information yet. So you know, I'm quite curious to find that out, but we probably won't find that out until Fuji at a time. But we'll see. Okay. Woo. Okay, let's go. Oh well, this probably won't make Towa feel better though.
そのまんまだよ。
As if on cue, the door opened and Madarame himself walked in. Perplexed, I fixed them all with a blank look.
マダラメってあの
He didn't know this entire time. This stupid NPC. The other men looked at Madarame in terror.
マジかよクソ殺さないでくれ頼むからやめてくれ
Oh, we don't care about you. He must have heard all the crazy rumors floating around about Madarame. Panicking, he scrambled backwards to distance
誰に
himself.
も言わねえからだからこの首輪を外してくれ頼むよ見逃してくれ
Last I heard, begging doesn't, like, you know, Madarame doesn't like that. Madarame strode over to him and kicked him in the... Yeah, same. I was just like, he's gonna kick you in the face.
何の役にも立たないやつは存在する意味がないな。黙ってろ。
He stared down coldly at the man in the collar. The other man pressed both hands to his face and groaned in pain. I could see blood dripping from his chin. Maybe his nose was broken. Oh, absolutely. Kotaro crouched down, smirking.
マダラメさん、マネーマッチに出たら大儲けできるんじゃね
Not the money matches.
マネーマッチ。
榊さんがこっそり開催してる金と命をかけたデスマッチです。
Oh, that's right. They're sponsored by Sakaki. Oh, God. I hate him.
大抵は負債者が借金返済のために出場することが多いんですけどね。
マダラメさんなら絶対負けないでしょ
But Madarame let out an annoyed sigh.
俺は榊や遠野みたいに金に意地汚くないからな。
ひとまず場所を変えませんか。トワさんにも説明しなくちゃいけませんし。
Yeah, please. I need the tea.
よっしゃそんじゃ行くか
You know, now that Madarame's here, they look a lot more complete. I feel like this is like how it was always supposed to be. You just put Towa in the middle, you know? Not like that, but you know what I mean. I mean, you know, I feel like everything's coming together now. I mean, it feels a little sad. Well, not really. I take it back. Not really, but anyway, let's continue. Sorry, the thoughts are running. The thoughts are running, girl. Okay.
行くぞ。
Let's leave, baby. Clueless, I followed them out of the room. Once we moved to a different building, they explained to me how they were connected. After the Takasato shootout, Madarame survived and fled Japan. As for Kotoro, Mayu, and Eiji, they weren't always part of the Madarame faction, but they liked him. Eiji in particular kept in touch with him even after he went abroad. Then when the leader died, Madarame came back to Japan to destroy the Takasato Gumi, and they all agreed to help him. I take back every bad thing I said about these. Eiji's fine, but the other two. I take back everything I said about these fools. Okay.
別に高里組に恨みがあるとかそういうわけじゃねえんだけどよマダラメさんが吊るしたいって言うから乗ったんだ
I love that. It's like, we don't really care, but Madarame said so, so let's do it. Kotaro sat cross-legged on the concrete and unwrapped the pastry. The ground was littered with pastries, sandwiches, booze, and more. All of it was brought here from the last hideout. Like Kotaro, Mayu sat on the floor, spinning his lollipop in his mouth.
こういう食べ物とか飲み物も俺たちがいつもマダラメさんに
That
渡してたよ。
explains everything. I was like, why is it pastry? That would explain how Madarame always managed to bring a ton of stuff back to the hideout. Eiji was busy gathering intel on his phone, so he didn't join the conversation much. Likewise, I just sat there and smoked. I considered asking Madarame to explain why he left Japan or why he came back to destroy the Takasato Gumi, but decided against it. Whether he was in a bad mood or just not interested in talking, I wasn't sure. Either way, he hadn't said a word the whole time. Like a haze, his smoke was barely moving. The trio took the hint and didn't ask him about anything. In the end, the conversation focused on their short-term plans for the Takasato Gumi. Oh boy, okay. This is so much, okay, I feel so much better. I was just like, is this what is this gonna turn into? After the other three left, the room went quiet. Madarame was a man of few words, and I wasn't much better, so we generally didn't talk much. Until recently, I could never have endured the silence. But now, I didn't really care. It still gnawed at me a little, of course, but not nearly as much as before. Sitting against the wall, I zoned out and smoked a cigarette. Then I felt a pair of eyes on me and looked over. Madarame was staring at me from his usual chair.
平気なのか?
I mean... I frowned in confusion at the sudden question.
何?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how? Like, how?
無音を嫌がってただろう、お前。
Well... Madarame had known this about me ever since the old days. I averted my gaze away from him and toward the window.
ああ、まあ、多分、そうか。
The conversation died and the silence returned. I flicked my third cigarette butt to my feet. I heard a faint sound from the window. Kitty! I looked over to find a little lump curled up on the concrete floor. It was a cat with big green eyes. Wait a second. It looked at me and meowed. Is this did Madarame have a cat this whole time that has the same eyes as Towa? I'm going to lose my mind. I hate it here. Oh, mercy. Okay. Then Madarame rose from his chair and walked over to it. I cannot believe this man. Not the gap, no way. No, I'm just joking. I expected him to shoot away, but instead he grabbed a sandwich, ripped off a piece, and tossed it on the floor. The cat eagerly pounced. For a moment I was stunned, but then I remembered that he was a cat lover. You know, all this time you make me... The emotional stress I feel, the emotional push and pull, the emotional confusion I feel in this chapter, I feel very used. I feel very attacked. Now they're like, oh, so Madarame is not only a yandere, Madarame is also a cat lover. So now you gotta like him. Oh, please. He's also an animal lover. Okay. Okay, Madarame, okay. Whatever you say, Madarame, whatever you say. Well, I'm still scared. I'm still like scared of him, but I can now put trust in him. I can now trust this man to break apart the Takasato Gumi, and let's go. Let's do it, baby. Let's make things happen, baby. Okay, let's go. Let's take down the yakuza. Back in the day, when a stray cat found its way into Madarame's apartment, I fed it, and then it moved in permanently. He loved that cat to bits.
あんたこそ変わってないな。
They're talking. They're finally talking. I muttered quietly. He looked at me and smirked.
似てるだろ
Mood.
何が
You!
お前
Watch me, you!
これ
He's just like, I hate it. I hate that you found this cat that has the same colored eyes as Okay. He jerked his chin at the cat eating happily. I frowned. At the very least, I was mostly hairless. Oh, not the kid. He chuckled and looked back at the cat. As I rolled my eye, I thought back to our days in the Takasato Gumi.
Oi, oi, Madarame. お前猫が好きなのか?
Not them slightly covering the homie there. Towa, the blonde hair is so pretty. Oh my gosh. Ah! Oh boy.
Ah, 可愛いからな.
Not the gap, Moe.
意外だな。喧嘩してる時のお前を知っちまうと、とても小動物を可愛がるようなやつには見えないよ。
No, it makes absolute sense. It makes absolute sense that he doesn't like anybody besides like Towa and Kaga probably, and then he hates everybody else. I mean, you know, he probably is like neutral to some people and then hates everybody else, and then like of course he would like cats. That makes absolute sense, especially if he likes Towa. Absolutely makes absolute sense. You're out of your mind, Kaga.
まあ、そうかも。イメージはどうでもいい。可愛いと思ったから撫でてるだけだ。
I like that process of thought.
じゃあ、喧嘩は殴りたいと思ったから殴るって?
Absolute. Well, you know who Madarame reminds me of, actually? I think I mentioned that. Hibari from Hitman Reborn. Like, because Hibari just, like, beats up whoever he feels like it. Like, his sleep is disturbed, I'm beating you up, right? Madarame is just, like, we're talking, and then 2 seconds later, he's just, like, punching a homie, you know? So...
どうしようもないやつだな、お前は。でもまあ、お前らしいよ。
Not that I wished I could go back or anything, but... I liked those days. Kaga was my older half-brother. Born out of wedlock to Takasato Ryujiro and his mistress, Kaga took his mother's maiden name and joined the Takasato Gumi as a foot soldier. But after they bought the rights to Shinkomi and took over, he decided he didn't like the gang's way of doing things. Gradually, more and more gang members grew dissatisfied. They got in touch with Kaga and begged him to come back. He reluctantly agreed. However, he distanced himself from the main branch and associated with an affiliated organization instead. Oh, well, that would make a lot of sense. Kaga was a free spirit who didn't take orders from anyone. He would often strike up a conversation with me and Madarame. Partly because I was his brother, probably, but he seemed to like Madarame too. Kaga didn't care about money or prestige. He only cared about who you were as a person. He was frank and forthright with everyone he spoke to, and he had the gang's best interests at heart. Well, that would make a lot of sense why Sakaki and Tona were just like, get rid of him. Perhaps because of that, he was the one guy Madarame was willing to take orders from. The man I saw in front of me hadn't changed a bit since those days. All this time, I believed he had killed Kaga, but now I knew that wasn't true. As I smoked my cigarette and let my mind wander, I realized Madarame was suddenly right beside me. I looked over to find that the cat was gone. Madarame crouched down and leaned forward with an unlit cigarette in his mouth. Likewise, I leaned forward to press the tip of my cigarette to his. Once his cigarette was lit, he straightened up and walked to the window. My gaze trailed after him through the haze of the smoke. A big round moon floated in the black sky.
あの日も月が出てたな。
Oh, the night they all got shot? Ugh. He murmured to himself.
あの日、
The night you all got shot.
加賀が死んだ日だ。
Every time I saw the moon, it reminded me of this very same thing.
本気を出さなくなったのはいつからだ。
He asked without looking at me.
新興味へ戻ってきてからずっとお前を見ていた。 殴られても殴り返さない。くたびれた人形みたいにやられっぱなしだ。いつからそうなった？
I thought back to how I used to be. Back when we were together, I was extremely combative. To be clear, I didn't go around. Oh, dang it! Hold on a second. I'm gonna read this. To be clear, I didn't go around picking fights with everyone, but if you push my buttons, I would I would kick you without batting an eye. Okay. So tired of accidentally clicking everything. Once I started punching, I wouldn't stop until the other guy went down, even if my life was in danger. I wasn't afraid of dying, nor was I afraid of killing my opponent. To me, it was just fun. I like to hurt, and I like to get hurt back. Now that switch had rusted over, I'd learned that it was easier to let the other person do all the work. This applied to sex too, and even my art. It was easier and faster to just do what someone else wanted. If I died, then so be it. I lowered my gaze from the window to the floor. Ash fluttered down from the tip of my cigarette. At no point had I forgotten who I used to be when I was with him. But not for lack of trying.
全部どうでもいいと思ったのはあの放送の後からだ。加賀が死んで、右根も死んで、あんたも消えてからこうなった。
Dang. I wasn't directly traumatized, but something inside me slowly died. None of it mattered. It was all just a hassle. Granted, I was always apathetic and lazy, but some part of me changed that night. Perhaps I lost my forward momentum without Madarame around to bark orders.
本当に似てるな。
Is he talking about Kaga? Madarame looked at me and smirked.
何が？お前と猫だ。
Oh, the cat! The cat!
バカにしてるのか？
You tried to piss me. Confused, I shot him a dirty look.
放っておいても勝手に生きるんだろうが。
You dirty, scrawny, and hungry. Please, please. I didn't know Madarame was a comedian.
だから、お前には飼い主が必要なんだ。
Homeboy is like way too spicy. Like, Homeboy's too spicy, bro. He grinned like he'd read my mind. Before now, the old me would have snapped at him sarcastically. The new me didn't feel the need to argue. All because of that cat. And it reminded me of what life was like with him, and now I was burdened with all this unnecessary sentimentality. Oh, mood. I had no intention of admitting it, so instead of responding, I exhaled cigarette smoke. Beyond the haze, I could see the full moon silently shining down on us. Oh, man. What a time. Silence lingered. Madarame grazed through the window for a while, then pulled his phone out and looked over at me.
そろそろ動くか。
I shot him a questioning look from my spot on the floor. Yeah, what are we
仕事
doing?
だ。
What's the job?
仕事？今夜、高里組が運営する会員制カジノに、大野が客を連れてくるらしい。
It's the
その席へ
casino.
潜入しろ。どうやって？
How are we gonna do that? Towa's the home. They know what he looks like.
素性がバレないように変装して、遠野の護衛として入り込む。
Oh, okay, okay.
お前はうまく遠野に近づいて、こう言え。まだらめがしびれを切らしてるから早く来いってな。
Oh, okay. His lips curled in a sneer.
なんでわざわざそんなこと？本気にさせるためだ。あいつはプライドが高いからな。今はこそこそと逃
That's
げ回
true.
ってる。
Tono is like at his very
青が
core.
出てくるだろう。
He absolutely is just like a coward. That's probably why he like holds guns everywhere. Whereas like Sakaki is a lot less I feel like Sakaki's a lot less fearful.
遠野は俺が復讐に来たと思って探し出して殺そうとするはずだ。
Yep, that's
自分の命を
that's
脅かす危険を排除するために。榊は逆だ。生き延びるためなら平気で尻尾を巻いて逃げ帰る。できれば自分の手は汚したくないってタイプだ。
Yeah.
俺じゃなくてもいいだろ。
Oh, yes, we
お
do.
前だからいいんだよ。面白いだろ
It will be fun.
う。わざわざ回りくどい真似をするのも含めてな。
They really said, I'm gonna like turn it around on you. It's like they're gonna try to make you hate Madarame, and then they're just like, haha, actually Madarame is like hilarious. And I'm like, oh, well, here I am. Hey, fellas. Not them. These two, I'm used to these two like exposing themselves, and now they're wearing like suits. At that moment, the door opened and Kotaro and Mayu walked in. Both of them were wearing suits.
よー、さっきぶり。マダラメさんに頼まれてたもの持ってきたぜ。
Okay, what we get? Kotaro set a large duffel bag on the floor as he spoke.
これなんだと思う？トワの変装セットだって。
Alright.
トワ、お前これから俺たちの手下になるよ。
Soldier boy, tell him. Mayu seemed to be strangely gleeful about this.
開けてみろ。
Oh boy, what is it? I got up, walked over to the duffel bag, unzipped it, and pulled out its contents. A button-down shirt, a necktie, a suit jacket, and slacks, socks, shoes, leather gloves, and sunglasses. Included was a hairbrush, hairspray, and some liquid makeup. That's definitely for Mayu.
これは
Oh, you have to cover up, yeah. I held up the bottle of beige liquid. Kotaro tapped his cheek.
それを塗って傷を隠すんだとよ。お前、すげえ色男になるんじゃねえか。
First of all, he is hot. How dare you? Ignoring his playful comments, I looked over at Madarame. I wanted to protest, but he gave me a commanding look. Reluctantly, I started to strip, and Kotaro let out a wolf whistle. After I buttoned my shirt and pulled on my jacket and slacks, I reached for the tie.
ネクタイなんか結べないんじゃないの？ちなみに俺は結べないよ。
As Mayu jeered at me, I smirked
俺
defiantly.
もだ。
And then I tied it right in front of him.
へえ。トワの嘘
Of course he does. He's Towa.
やるじゃん。
お前よりも物覚えがいいからな。
顔。
Yikes.
結べて当然だろう。こいつは育ち
I
が
was
いい。
gonna say, I was just like his parents are yeah.
そういやそうだった。親父の息子だもんな。
So little please. I stepped into my new shoes, then took the hairbrush, hairspray, and foundation into the bathroom. With the mirror as my guide, I painted over the scars on my face and hands, then made an attempt at doing my hair. Ooh, girl. Ooh. When I walked back out to the main room, Kotaro started clapping like Have mercy. Also, they're really just gonna walk in like that? Like, well, I guess it's because he doesn't have any scars on his face, so nobody would really know what Towa looks like.
色男。
You need to chill, Kotaro.
いいね。
いいね。
孫にも衣装ってやつだな。
Madarame? Where? Madarame out here. I glared at each of them in turn.
んじゃ、行きますか。
ごっこ遊びの始まり。
Asabo? Asabo? With that, Kotaro and Mayu headed for the
行
door.
ってこい。
Knock him dead. Oh, we're gonna try. We're gonna do our best. Madarame folded his arms and grinned at me. I shot him a sidelong glance, then left the room. Oh gosh, here we go. We left the deathmatch area, piled into Kotaro's car, and drove to Cole Street. I sat in the back seat and stared out the window at the nightscape flying past in a single blur. The city still looked as vibrant as ever. To me, Felt like a whole different world. When you considered how my life had changed, it basically was. As we drove to our destination, Kotaro and Mayu gave me a rundown of the plan. Apparently, Tono would arrive at the casino in the same car as his VIP. The bodyguards would form a circle around them as soon as they exited the car, and I would join that circle. Then Tono and his guests would head deep into the casino to the VIP lounge. My job was to find the right timing to approach Tono, pass on Madarame's message, then get the hell out of Dodge. Eiji had planted a remote-controlled explosive in the alley just outside. Once I was out of the building, he detonated. I would use the diversion as cover to make my escape. Supposedly, Kotaro and Mayu would run interference in the interim. Then I realized we were near the Takasato office, and a thought occurred to me. I looked at Kotaro in the driver's seat.
まだ時間はあるか
Oh. He glanced over his shoulder at me.
ああ、そんなに余裕があるわけじゃないが。
事務所に寄ってくれ
Oh.
事務所なんだよ
榊に話がある
Oh.
はいよ。
He gripped the wheel and changed course. Oh, here we go! A few minutes later, the building came into view, and we parked on the street.
俺とマイは待ってるからよ。行ってきてくれ。
Man, Towa's bold. I nodded and hopped out. Then I walked up to the building.
あれ父さん
Igarashi! When I walked in, Igarashi came running over.
どうしたんすかっていうか清掃してるトワさんの清掃初めて見ましたよ
His eyes widened as he took in my suit and slicked back hair.
線香をあげに来た
Oh.
線香って親父ですか
ああ
Sure.
榊の
案内します
Oh boy. He straightened his posture and led me down the hall to the room at the end.
失礼しますトワさんがいらっしゃいました
どうせ
He opened the door and gestured for me to enter. So in I went. Eh. Sakaki was sitting at his desk in his leather-bound chair. I received no warm welcome. Instead, his face was hard.
失礼します
With a bow, Igarashi left the room.
急にどうしたまさか親父に線香でもあげに来たってんじゃねえだろうな
Yes. At this, I shrugged. Formal wear would give anyone that impression.
マダラメと一緒にいるんだろ
No.
あいつが進む先には破滅しかねえそれは分かってるんだろうな
Sakaki looked at me darkly. Again, I shrugged. We hear it from Taku and Rei? We're spies in the deathmatch area. Either way, it seemed he already knew about us.
かがむことはな仕方がなかったんだ
Do you? Do you? He sighed and looked away.
かがと俺たちは考え方が違った伝統が重んじるあまり組がダメになっちまったら身も蓋もねえだろうお前が加賀側だってのは知ってたんだが俺にも譲れねえもんがあったんだ
Don't y'all just want money?
だから俺は遠野と手を組み加賀と対立した
Why are you telling me these things? Like,
じゃなきゃ高里組はいや新子組はなくなってたかもしれねえんだ
so that's what it was? You guys just didn't want to, like, not have power? Well, I guess that would make sense. They didn't want to lose power, so. Whereas, like, Kaga wanted to dismantle it.
そのことを言い訳にはしたくねえがお前を気にかけてるのは罪滅ぼしの
For
つもり
what, though?
自分の身を心配しろよ
Yeah, look out for yourself. With that, I turned on my heel. I could feel Sakaki's eyes piercing my back as I left the room. Good luck, Igarashi. Out in the hall, the Igarashi looked at me fearfully, but I ignored him and exited the building. Alright, let's get rid of Tono. That gets on my nerves. When I returned to Kotaro's car, the engine was still running, so I hopped in the back.
よう遊んだのか？
ああ。じゃあ会場まで行っちゃいましょう。
In the venue! The car took off in the direction of our ultimate destination. Shifting uncomfortably in my tight-fitting suit, I stared out the window at the endless stream of scenery. Okay, kids. We found a parking lot on Hagoita Street and parked in an empty space.
ここから少し歩くぞ。
Okay, let's go, kids. I put on my sunglasses to conceal my face, and then the three of us climbed out of the car.
組の車ならどこで止めてもいいんだが、こいつはカモフ
This
ラージ
one's
用
for
だからな。
undercovers.
下手なところに路駐して、泥棒にでも持ってかれたら逃げらんねえ。
The Takasato cars were pretty distinct. No one dared to steal one. Kotaro's car, on the other hand, was completely ordinary. He locked the car and then we started walking. Oh, look, it's Las Vegas. As we traveled down the busy street, people called out to Kotaro and Mayu left and right. No surprise there since they both knew a lot of people. No one said a thing to me, however.
それにしてもよ、生身のマダラメさんには久しぶりに会ったが、ほんとなんも変わんねえよな。
I mean, that's what we were talking about. Kotaro spoke in a quiet voice as he glanced around us.
見た目も全然変わんないしね。今もう40代でしょ。あの人実は人間じゃなかったりして。
Wait, how old? 40 something? Well, yeah, cause, yeah. Okay, yeah,
ア
sorry.
ニメの見過ぎだ、バーガ。
Then something occurred to me. For as long as I known the trio, I never knew they talked to Madarame.
いつからだ？
何が？
お前たちがまだらめに懐いたのは。
あ
懐いたって俺ら犬みたいね。
I mean, ironically, he kinda is. Like, at this point, it kinda seems like he is.
あ、マダラメさんがカブ頭を殴り飛ばした時だ。
Old
覚えてる
Pearly.
が？
Who's old Pearly? Pearly was the nickname we gave to an old follower of Sakaki's, so chosen due to his pale bald head. Oh, it was one of okay. He was convinced that he was Sakaki's favorite, so he tried to bark orders at everyone else. At the time, Madarame's skill was unknown, so everyone saw him as a nobody. One day, Pearly tried to discipline him for his attitude, only to get his booty handed to him. He ended up with a broken nose and facial fractures, and he was so humiliated he never showed his face to get good.
俺は正直、派閥とかそういうものはどうでもいいんだが、適当に上の言うことを聞いてりゃいいと思ってた時に、マダラメさんが株頭を殴り倒した話を聞いて、面白いって思
Well,
って
if
よ。
you're dumb, then you deserve to get punched. No, at least in Yakuza terms.
権力も金も興味ないからな。こいつやべえって思ったんだよ。
That's how you know he real bad. That's how you know he bad.
俺もそう。それ一人だけ全然違うの。何かやらかしそうで楽しいでしょ。
These two crack me up. They're just like, it's bug wild, let's go.
マダラメさんはな、抗争の時に撃たれはしたんだよ。だが死にはしなかった。逃げて海外へ飛んだんだ。で、エイジ宛てに変なメールが届いたっつうんで調べてみたら、マダラメさんからだったんだよ。
それからだよ。エイジ経由でこそこそ連絡取って準備して、まるでコウモリみたいね。
マダラメさん、親父が死んだ今がチャンスだって思ったみたいでよ。こっちに戻ってきて、ずっとデスマッチエリアに潜んでたんだ。
It makes sense.
が、急にトワを捕まえるって言い出したんだよな。
そうそう、あれはびっくりしたね、マジで。
Not these two.
それまでは割と静かだったんだが、マダラメさんがいきなり元気になったっつうか、どっかでお前を見かけたらしいな。
Yeah, probably.
トワとマダラメさん、昔からつるんでたね。
I'd say a little more than buddies,
こ
but
こからは俺の推測だが、
Kotaro glanced at me out of the corner of his eye.
マダラメさん、榊とどうのすげえ憎んでると思う。
Oh yeah, let's do.
本人は何も言わないが、遠野に関しちゃ裏切って榊側についた上に加賀の兄貴を殺してその罪をかぶせられたんだからな。
Back then, we all watched as the rift between Kaga and Sakaki/Tono grew wider and wider every day. Kaga was a hot-blooded guy, so he was always getting into arguments and fistfights. Madarame didn't seem to despise him that much, though I couldn't say for sure. Whenever he was around me or Madarame, Kaga would start talking about the future of the Takasato Gumi. I didn't actually care, but I could still feel the passion in every word he said. At one point, I found myself thinking Kaga should be the new leader.
俺は別に誰がどんな野望を抱いてようがどうでもいいんだけどよ。マダラメさんがやるって言うからついていくだけだ。
They said whatever's good. whatever's a party. Let's go.
俺もビジネスとかどうでもいい。全部ぶっ飛ばす方がかっこいいよ。
Oh, these two suit Towa well, huh?
ね、お前も俺たちと同じってことでいいのか？
Well, Towa said he would Madarame, so at this, I lowered my gaze to my feet.
そうかもな。
Unlike them, I wasn't eager to take orders from Madarame, but I would have to if I wanted to choose his side.
その人ごとな感じ、お前らしいな。
Kotaro let out a breathy chuckle as he spoke. Alright. Oh, I remember this place. Ugh. As we walked and talked, I caught sight of an ostentatious building up ahead. Men in suits and women in showy dresses were standing at the
一
entrance.
緒に入る護衛のやつらとジョーだ。
多いな。いくら護衛って言っても大げさじゃないか。
Exactly.
数さえ多けりゃどうにかなると思ってんだろ。遠野の野郎。
That's the
ずっ
truth.
と隠れてたからな。
That's the truth.
さすがに外とのお仕事となると隠れてるわけにもいかねえようだ。
Hey, this was her name! I remember her. He scoffed quietly, then called out to the group standing around.
おう、ご苦労さん。
ご苦労ご苦労。
Gokuro! The group responded to them in kind, and while they were distracted, I casually inserted myself among the men. A few minutes later, a black car rolled up out front. One of the bodyguards walked up and opened the rear passenger door, and Tono slowly clambered out. On the opposite side of the car, a portly man stepped out, probably the VIP. It's always a portly man. Tono gestured with one hand for the other man to go first. Then he and his guests started walking, which was our cue to flank them with the rest of the group. When we entered the casino foyer, I could hear classical music playing in the background. The foyer featured a full bar with a stage where live performances were held. But when Tono walked in, the guests all looked up from their martinis. Some even bowed. We strolled along to the main casino floor. The room was filled with lights and sounds. In the center, a large chandelier hung from the vaulted ceiling. Any music was overridden by the blaring beeps of the machines, but the guests in their tuxedos and dresses looked right at home. Tono crossed to the other end of the room, then turned left. There, he reached a corridor guarded by a bouncer, who promptly bowed and stepped aside. The corridor was short, and I could see a pair of double doors up ahead. Two of the bodyguards walked ahead of Tono and opened the doors for the rest of the group to file through. What lay beyond was a spacious room furnished with tables and leather sofas. At a glance, it looked like a cabaret club. In other words, a lounge for schmoozing the guest. Tono walked to the sofa at the center of the room where someone was already sitting with their back turned. When he sensed Tono approaching, the man looked over his shoulder. Instantly, I recognized him. In fact, it took me a minute to recover. It was Taku. What the hell was he doing here? At first I thought maybe it was someone else who resembled him, but no, it was him. Tono greeted Taku, gestured for the VIP to sit, then took a seat himself. Then the dolled up women followed suit. I blended in with the bodyguards as I observed the situation. Kotaro and Mayu were standing a short distance away. One of the women started making drinks for Tono and the VIP. The two men clinked their glasses, chatting and smiling. Meanwhile, Taku sat beside them, stony-faced and silent. When I listened carefully to the conversation, I heard drug repeated several times. Madarame had told me that Takasato Gumi was creating a new drug. Tono had always resented the organization's strict adherence to tradition, and this new business venture was crossing into forbidden territory, which could only mean Tono was behind it all. And in that case, I really didn't understand what Taku was doing here. As curious as I was, I had a job to do. Was this my chance while Tono was chatting? I looked over at Kotaro. Our eyes met, and he nodded. That was the signal. I approached Tono.
Tono-san.
Before the rest of the group could realize what was up, I bent forward toward him. Disgruntled, he looked over his shoulder at me, and I whispered into his ear.
少し気になる話が。
なんだ
He glared at me. I pulled off my sunglasses and looked into his eyes. His eyes flew open in shock.
マダラメがあんたに会いたがってる。待ちくたびれたから早く来いってさ。
Oh, spicy.
お前トワか
The instant he said my name, Taku whipped his head up to look at me, stunned. Run, baby, run! For a moment our eyes met. Then I turned and bolted.
捕まえろ待て
Oh boy, let's
パ
go.
ウチェン俺って足が長いから
はいお前
You little rat. Let's go, besties! I threw the double doors open, shoved the bouncers out of my way, and shot across the casino floor.
お前おい待て
Murmurs of alarm rippled through the guests as I charged through them to the foyer. Then the men at the front entrance pulled out their guns to stop me, and the guests screamed. As I ran, I grabbed a ceramic display piece from the hall and flung it as hard as I could in their direction. Oh, I remember this dude on the left and that dude on the right. That dude on the right got fired. Dude on the left got jacked up. Lisa! Lisa! I missed her. It hit the door and shattered into pieces, briefly distracting the men, who flinched in surprise. I closed in, punched one in the face, and knocked the gun from his hand. Then I grabbed it off the floor, put my arm around the guy's neck, and used him as a meat shield as I walked forward. The instant the other guy hesitated to fire his gun, I promptly shot him in the leg. Work. While gunshot guy crouched down into a ball, I slammed the grip of the gun into the back of Meat Shield's neck. Then I flung him away and ran out of the building. I dropped the gun and dashed into the nearby alleyway.
俺はこっちを探すからお前ら向こうだ
I could hear Kotaro shouting intentionally, misdirecting my pursuers. Just then an explosion went off behind me, shaking the ground and the air itself. I stopped and looked back down the alleyway. I could feel the panic radiating from the building. Now I just needed to make my getaway. But right as I started walking, someone grabbed my arm. Distracted by the explosion, I hadn't sensed his presence. But I had a feeling I knew who it was. Groaning internally, I turned to look. A man stood with his hood pulled low, grinning faintly.
Madarame.
He lowered his hood and snorted at me.
その格好本当に似合ってるな
This is not the time. This is not the time to act up. This is not the time to act thirsty. This is not the time for compliments. We're trying to escape. Madarame. Let's continue. He looked me up and down as he spoke.
うるさい
I grumbled and yanked off my necktie.
うまくいったか
Fantastic.
遠野のやつ驚いてただろ
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
それより知ってたのか何が
Taku?
タクのことだ
Yeah. probably. He quirked a brow at me playfully.
どうしてタクがトウノと一緒にいるんだ？
エイジの話だと、新しい薬の開発に関わってるらしい。大方、
Yeah, that's usually
ト
how
ウノ
they
に
work.
弱みでも握られてるんじゃないか。それも高里組が潰れれば、すぐに終わる。
That's true. That's true. Madarame narrowed his eyes and gazed out at the street in the direction of the audible commotion. I snuck a peek at his face in profile, then averted my gaze. Work. From there, Madarame and I returned to our hideout. I changed out of the tight-fitting suit and back into my usual clothes, then sat against the wall and had a smoke. Likewise, Madarame sat in his chair and lit one up. But just then, he jumped to his feet and walked over. Yes. Cigarette between his lips, he offered me something. It was an old faded scrap of paper. I took it, flipped it over, and realized it was actually an old photograph. I knew it. I was like, it's a photo. Oh, a photo of me, Kaga, and Madarame. Kaga was smiling, Madarame was looking away from the camera, and I was staring at my feet. A faint ache sparked in my chest, but I had no intention of waxing nostalgic about the past. Rather, I was just surprised that Madarame had held on to it at all. Why would he offer it to me? He stood beside me and stared wordlessly at the photograph. Maybe it was just the downturned eyes, but he seemed somber. Kotaro told me that Sakaki and Tono had framed Madarame for Kaga's death.
加賀を殺したのか？あんたの口から聞きたい。
Yeah, I want to know. I also want to know. I spoke quietly as I looked at him.
違う。
He answered curtly.
はめられたんだって、榊と遠野に。
Of course.
小太郎から聞いたのか。
Oh. He flicked the ash from his cigarette.
加賀のこと、どう思ってた？
He stared up into space, mulling it over.
どうも何も。
なんだよ。
These two. Okay.
バカだった。
I mean, he sounded very shonen pro tag type of beat.
バカ。
ああ、バカだ。だからあいつは俺にも突進して
Oh,
きた。
mood. Yeah, see? Exhaling cigarette smoke, he looked down at the floor.
俺が誰かをぶちのめすたび、あいつが締めに来る。それで何度も喧嘩になって、いつか殺そうと思ってた。だから、あいつに殺すって言ったんだ。そして、
Oh, yes, very
殺せるもんなら
testosterone
殺
of
してみろ
them.
って単価を
Very
切ってきてやったよ。
testosterone of them. He glanced over at me, then looked back at the floor.
それからも喧嘩して、半殺しにしてやった時もあった。だが、あいつはそれでも向かってきた。組の人間として外れた行為はするなって、よりにもやって
Got
俺
a
に言うん
brain
だ。
cell in his head.
呆れるほどのバカだろ。
Sounds like my type of dude, yeah.
あいつはとにかく自分の信念を貫き通すためなら、誰に対しても真正面からぶつかっていくやつだった。俺も結局、途中からやり合うのがバカらしくなってな。相手にするのをやめたんだ。バカの相手をしても時間の無駄だからな。そうしたら、
Ah.
今度は俺がおとなしくなったとでも思ったのか。向こうから話しかけてくるようになった。無視しても懲りずに話しかけてくる。喧嘩も無駄、しかとも無駄なバカなら、あとは本当に殺すしかない。だが、加賀も別に弱いわけじゃない。
Madarame is literally saying he was annoying, so I wanted to push him off the cliff. But He's twonk.
そう簡単に殺せないことは分かってる。ってことは何度もやり合うことになる。それじゃただの喧嘩。
This is the most information Madarame has given me this entire chapter.
だからまともにバカの相手をするのをやめた。それだけだ。まあ。
Exhaling smoke, he dropped his cigarette butt to the floor and crushed it under his heel.
大抵のバカは嫌いだが、榊や遠野に比べれば加賀は多少マシだったって話だ。
He fell silent and hung his head. His smoke wavered a tiny bit. Oh! Kaga approached any problem with full sincerity. No matter how hard Sakaki or Tono argued against his beliefs, he never compromised. He was always telling us how organized crime was built on a foundation of protecting the weak.
あんた、海外へ飛んでたんだろ。
I looked down at the old photograph as I spoke.
なんだ、やけに聞きたがるな。
That's the game, Madarame. That's the point of this whole game.
嫌ならこんなもん渡すな。
Mood. Madarame chuckled.
奴らが失速することは分かってたからな。潰すタイミングを待ってたんだ。
My man! Sorry.
とうとう組長が死んだと聞いて、こっちに戻ってきた。
That is, I
畳み
mean,
かけるには
perfect
絶
timing,
好の
yeah.
タイミングだ。
While they're like already in turmoil with each other, yeah.
戻ってからはデスマッチエリアに潜伏して準備を整えていた。そうしたら見つけたんだ。
Yeah, this is the part I want to know. His eyes glinted darkly at me.
お前がまだこの町にいることはエイジから聞いて知っていた。だがもしお前が変わり果てていたら接触するつもりはなかった。
That's what you said.
変わり果てていたら
Confused, I furrowed my brow.
あの抗争の後、お前はフラフラと放浪していると聞いた。俺といた時のお前は急に飛びかかってくるような危なっかしさがあった。
Ah.
だから牙が抜け落ちてるんじゃないかと思ったんだよ。実際この町に戻ってから見たお前はふぬけているようだった。お前が俺にぶつかってきた時のことを覚えてるか？
Yes, I believe. The first night? When was that? Oh. My eye widened as the memory came to the forefront of my mind. Yep, that one. So that was Madarame.
あれは俺がわざとお前にぶつかったんだ。どういう反応をするか確かめに行った。
Ah.
俺が殴ったら、
Okay.
お前は殴り返してき
It's
た。
been so long, Madarame, but yes, okay, yeah. His lips curled in a grin as he gazed at me.
その時の気迫や目つきを見て、お前は変わっていないと分かった。今は鳴りを潜めているだけで、間違いなく昔と同じだと。
I see. I see.
殴っても殴っても噛みつこうとしてくる目がたまらない。怯えるどころか、もっととねだるように掴みかかってくる目だ。
You can say you're in love, Madarame. I don't know why you can't just say it. Like, it's kind of obvious. Like, sorry.
本気で殺し合うことを心の底から楽しんでる。それ以外には興味がない。
I'm still convinced this means Madarame is yandere, essentially. He reached out and touched my face, stroking my right eye. My shoulders twitched slightly.
俺とお前は相性がいい。
He's not wrong.
俺はお前のなら
You can say it. You can say it. He paused there, then pulled his hand away. After a moment of intense eye contact, he snatched the photo back and turned away. That was the end of our conversation. Spicy. I sat against the wall, having a smoke as my mind wandered. After we spoke, Madarame left the room without another word. It wasn't like him to get so chatty. Yeah, exactly. I was just like, he's talking a lot. My brain replayed each sentence over and over in my head.
俺とお前は相性がいい。
Once again, not
俺
wrong.
はお前となら。
Yeah, what was it? What were you trying to say, homeboy? With you, I... What was he going to say to me? Before I knew it, I'd smoked my cigarette to the filter, crushed it in the ashtray at my feet. Then the door opened, and Madarame walked in. His arms were laden with large plastic bags, which he dropped onto the table. One by one, he pulled out all kinds of food and drinks. He was grinning too. Apparently he was in a good mood.
最後の晩餐だ。明日は特別な日だからな。何の日かわかるか。
Tomorrow the last go. The question struck me as childish. I slowly shook my head.
高里組を潰す日か。
Is it?
それも正解だが、もっと違う言い方がある。
Oh, okay.
俺が完全勝利する日。
I was just like, yes. He could be so immature sometimes, especially when he was in high spirits. I could only laugh and shake my head in exasperation.
前祝いってことで、小太郎たちも来るぞ。お前も食え。
I didn't have much of an appetite, but I was thirsty for booze. Slowly, I rose to my feet and walked to the table. And I picked up a bottle of booze and opened it with my teeth. After I chugged for a while, I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand.
お前は本当に酒が好きだな。
Bro is Towa is highly jacked up. Like he needs some. He watched me drink with an amused smile, then cracked open a can of beer.
あんたもだろ。
Mood. He held his can out like he was toasting me, then started chugging himself. Oh man. Oh, besties. Hey. You know, this looks oddly familial, but you know. in contrast to like when we're with Taku and Rei, it's a very interesting contrast, honestly, if I do say so myself. A short while later, Kotaro, Mayu, and Eiji arrived. Together, we all sat on the concrete, and the party began. Kotaro was drinking beers left and right. Mayu was focused on the junk food, and Eiji was playing around on his cell phone while eating some of the sushi he'd brought. Madarame was eating some of it too, but not me. I was focused on the booze.
今回はいいタイミングだったな。
ああ。
だね。
何かあるのか。
榊の襲名式がある。幹部が全員顔出す。場所は高里邸の大広間だ。遠野はもともと出ない予定だったのが急遽出ることになったらしいな。
トワがマダラメさんのことで煽ったからでしょ。みたいですね。そのことを相談したいんでしょう、きっと。
Interesting.
で、エイジがまた港央通りに何か所か爆弾を仕掛けるんだろ。
ええ、前回の爆破騒ぎに引き続きです。
Ooh, okay, okay. At the word bombs, Eiji nodded eagerly.
今はマダラメさんが戻ってきたことが分かって、みんな警戒してますからね。
Good.
またマダラメ派の誰かがやったと思って、すぐに港央通りへ人員を向かわせると思います。その間、多少は高里邸が手薄になるかと。マダラメさんとトワさんは正面から特攻して、榊さんと遠野さんを探してください。まあ手薄になってるとは言っても戦闘は免れません。そのために。
Eiji shot a look at Mayu, who grabbed the backpack next to him and pulled out 2 lumps wrapped in paper.
開けて。
Oh boy. I set my booze on the floor and took one of the parcels. It was heavier than I expected. Is it like a lead pipe? Then I unwrapped it. Oh! and I unwrapped it to find a gun.
万が一って時のためにな。
Instantly, a memory flashed through my mind. The memory of when I collapsed to the ground with a bullet in my eye. Just then, I could smell something burning. Oh. Hastily, I looked around for the source. But of course, nothing was burning in reality. Reflexively, I touched my right eye. Not that I was especially afraid to die, but I refused to let a Takasato thug kill me. In the past, maybe I wouldn't have cared. But now, things were different. Silently, I held the gun.
もう一丁はマダラメさんの分だ。
Of course. Madarame reached out and took the other paper parcel.
もしうまくいかなかったら
Well, sorry. At this, everyone turned to look at me.
それはないね。
Mayu's like, whatever. He's like, nothing bad's gonna happen, don't worry.
ないない。
遠野が絶対に来るという保証はない。それに人数で押し負ける可能性もないとは言えない。
そうしたら今度こそこっちから殺しに出向くだけだ。いつまでたっても肝の据わらない小物だと嘲笑ってやる。
Madarame is really good at gaining my affections, and I hate it. The more he talks, the more I'm like, man.
おそらく榊は次期組長という自分の立場を鑑みてギリギリまで顔を見せないはずだ。エイジの爆発騒ぎが起こればそのまま逃げようとするだろう。だがそっちも手は考えている。問題はない。
Okay. Alright.
ま、頑張りましょうや。
Yeah, let's make do, baby. After that, the trio were called back to Takasato HQ, so they dipped out.
前にもこうやって酒を飲んだことがあったな。
No. As I sipped from my bottle, Madarame sat down beside me.
あの時は加賀もいたか。抗争の前日だ。その割にくだらない話ばかりしたんだ。
そうだな。
Of course I remember. That day, Kaga got real drunk and started talking about his childhood. Then he started trying to pry into ours, and Madarame was not happy about it. When he asked me, I snapped back rudely, but he seemed to find this funny. That was the last memory I had of the three of us together.
俺は過去とかいう煩わしいものが嫌いだ。時間に過去も未来もない。今ここで生きている瞬間にしか意味はない。過去の因縁だなんだと揉めるのはバカのやることだ。俺が高里組を潰すのは復讐とかいうくだらない理由じゃない。
I like that. I like
気に
that.
食わないからだ。
I'm just hateful. And I like that. I
高
like
里組が消えてくれさえすれば、あ
that
とはどうでもいい。お前もそうだ、とは。今お前が俺の目の前にいる。それだけが現実で。
That's oddly romantic of Madarame to say that. He looked at me, his gaze as sharp and unwavering as the day we met.
だから俺から離れるな。
Ooh.
もう二度と。
Once again, very romantic of Madarame to say that, despite all this time being buck wild. Quietly, I gazed back at him.
俺が女なら腰が砕けてるところだ。
I'm cracking up. I teased him and he scoffed.
お前は砕けないのか？
あいにく。でも熱烈な告白があんたの口から聞けるのは悪い気分じゃ。
I was gonna say, I was just like, okay.
告白に聞こえたのか？今のが。
I mean, what was it? What was supposed to be Madarame?
むしろどういうつもりで言ったんだよ。
Exactly. Exactly.
どうもこうもない。そのままの意味だ。
Whatever. Whatever, Madarame. Apparently, he had no self-awareness whatsoever. Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, bro, you can say you're in love. It's okay. Anyone who heard the words "don't leave my side" would assume it was romantic. Bottle in hand, I rose to my feet and walked over to him. Then I crouched down and leaned
俺に
close.
は
告白に聞こえた。
Ooh.
好きに取れ。
Ooh.
俺があんたと一緒に行くメリットは
退屈はしないだろうな。
What's that supposed to be? Is that spicy?
それだけ。
His tone suggested he wasn't worried about me saying no. How was this man so endlessly confident? No, it wasn't that he was confident. He simply chose to only look at the present. Even if I rejected him, he would just keep on walking. After he destroyed the Takasato Gumi, he would go wherever his heart took him next. Personally, I was curious to see where that path might lead.
他に何か必要なのか？
I mean, yeah.
いや、
Work. That was spicy too. I smiled slightly. If he was willing to ask me outright, then I was willing to give him what he wanted. And the promise of a life free from boredom was more appealing than any pickup line. This man knew exactly what it was that I wanted. Woohoo! Woo! Again, oddly romantic for how this chapter started. But I guess, you know, slow damage. Madarame took the bottle from my hand, sipped the contents, then grabbed my jaw. He pressed his lips to mine, and the lukewarm liquid flowed into my mouth. Startled, I failed to react in time, and some of it trickled down my chin.
誓いの杯ってやつだ。
Oh boy. He pulled away and took another swig. Not the sake ritual. While he was drinking, I grabbed his head and forced my lips on his.
一方的なだけじゃちぎりを結んだことにならないだろう。
I dokied a little bit. Ooh, girl. The dokie happened. Ooh. I pulled away, then straightened up and walked to the window. There, I looked over my shoulder at him. He smiled back at me and chugged his booze. Oh man! Okay. Oh man. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then, as I gazed out at the black sky beyond the window, something occurred to me. I'd been planning something for a while, but now it was finally the perfect time. I turned away from the window and looked at him. He was having a cigarette, so evidently he was done drinking. Then he noticed me looking and our eyes met.
あんたと誓いを交わす見返りに話を聞きたい。
Is it time?
話？
Is it interrogation time?
ああ。
Finally. We're here! I walked up to him and crouched down right in front of him.
あんたのことをもっと知って絵を描きたい。
え？ああ、そういえば昔も書いてるとかなんとか言ってたな。
人の願望や欲望に興味がある。
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
それを聞いて絵を描くのか。趣味が悪いな。
I mean, you kind of... How much nosier can he get? I mean, he's been all up in that grill, you know? He fixed me with a calculating look, then he smirked.
まあいいだろう。お前と面と向かって話したことはあまりないからな。たまにはそういうのも面白そうだ。
He twirled his cigarette between his fingers. I couldn't manipulate or get a read on Madarame like I could with my art models. His smoke was always perfectly stable, and it hardly ever changed color. Frankly, I wasn't sure anything in the world could get under his skin. I gazed deep into his eyes, then slowly began to speak.
今から聞くことに答えてくれ。
いいか。
Ah.
あ
Ooh. 2. Perfect. Okay. Hold on. Hold up. Hold up, children. Okay. Before we begin, I have to do one thing.
なあ
Okay. I gotta save. Because I haven't saved this whole time. I've just been like, whoa! This has been a wild ride, so let's yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure this determines if I get a good ending or a bad ending, so let's see what we get. I think it's harder to get the bad endings though. Just because they seem very particular. So let's see. Let's see what I can do, okay? Let's see if my winning streak is gonna go, okay? Why did you join the Takasato Gumi anyway?
あれは
Someone asked me to, I forget who, told me I'd get to kick as much booty as I wanted. He's in a good mood. Okay, so what does this make a joke? Well, if he's in a good mood, shouldn't we... should we do this one?
ポジティブ
Because I feel like we need answers, right? You really went hog wild back then, didn't you? I enjoyed taking out groups of armed thugs with my bare hands, but eventually it got stale. Okay, let's see. Were you trying to achieve something in particular? How long were you planning to stay? Let's do this one.
よし
Were you trying to achieve something in particular? Nothing like that. I was just entertaining myself until I got bored. Ah, it didn't move. I feel like silence is not the move here. So let's just, I'm just gonna keep going.
じゃあ
How long were you planning to stay?
そうな
If it bored me, I would have quit on the spot. Keep talking. Good thing you stuck around for more, or else we never would have met.
もちろんそうだ
Okay, okay.
そういえば
What's your plan for after you settle the score with the Takasato Gumi?
そうな
I don't know. I'll find somewhere else to hang out. His eyes are sharper now. Let's ask calm.
ネガティブ要は
If you get sick of the next one, you'll leave again?
もちろんだ
Beats being bored, I'll tell you that. Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
けど
Hard to predict when you'll lose interest. Fair enough. Oh, he didn't move. Okay. I guess we'll just ask it all. Like,
まだらめ
how long are you sticking
も
around?
ちろん
No set schedule, just until I'm bored of it. Okay, good.
そういえば
I know you don't care about people, but what about animals? Hmm.
ポジティブそうだよな
You've always liked cats, right?
動物は本能に
Animals
従事
operate on instinct. They don't waste time. If you factor in your time with the gang, we spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
お前は
That's because you and I are the same.
ポジティブそうだな
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah, let's get nosy.
まあ
You say we're the same, but I can't figure out what your end game is.
そうだ
You don't need to. Well, this is not going the way I wish it to be.
もういいのか
Was that all? No. We gotta keep going. That's not enough.
まだだ
早くしろ
We didn't get anything. We didn't get anything from that, so
どうする
I do. Ah, here we go. Let's see. Well, he has a lot of like weird sentimentality though. Like, well,
加賀
no. Okay, fine.
加賀のことは
Okay. He doesn't like that one. Okay. There's gotta be something else. Well, first of all, it has to be the first one, or is it?
3人の写真
Oh yeah, it's definitely not this.
3人で写ってるあの写
Three
真
of us.
どうする
What do? Okay. What about the lighter? Lighter. Okay.
まだらめのオイルライター
Alright.
あのオイルライターお前のものだずっと持ってたのかああ
Okay. Uno. But the Dolce. Yeah, we gotta get in there.
あんたはいやなんでもない言いたいことがあるなら言え
Okay. Stress is real. Okay. Why do you?
な
For how long? I know we spent a lot of time together in the gang, but
今さら
what are you talking about from day one? No, we're
Positive.
we cannot be making jokes right now,
本
okay?
当に
From day one. Want me to spell it out? From the moment I laid eyes on you, I knew you and I were the same. Okay.
ああ
You sure made that decision in a hurry, didn't you? I didn't decide anything. I made an observation. Not sure how long it'll last.
俺は
How long will it take until I can finally understand you? You don't have to.
な
Crushing the Takasato Gumi is that your only desire.
そうだな
That and you.
ポジティブそれは
Guess that desire has been granted then.
そうだ
I like to think so. Okay.
ああなるほどな
So I was one of your objectives?
なんだ
Oh, now you notice, Slowpoke. You were serious about keeping me as your pet, weren't you?
そうだ
Still am, though you don't need a collar anymore. Ooh, work, okay.
ポジティブなるほどな
Sounds like you, alright. How else would you categorize people? Okay, we can do that.
な
How long do I have to be your
も
pet?
ちろん
Until I get bored of you. Okay. Okay.
ああじゃあ
What is it about me that made you want to keep me? Spit it out.
いや
I don't need to say it. Oh, yes you do!
どうなんだ
Yes you do. Did you feel that way about Kaga too?
もちろんだ
Kaga was a stray dog. He wasn't like you, because he wasn't like me.
Positive.
So you didn't want him as your pet? Nope. Well, if he's a dog, of course he wouldn't. Okay. Let's see. Kaga, a stray dog. Oh, I don't see it. Let's just I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep clicking. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I got the sense Kaga wanted more than that. He wanted to be friends. That's what makes him a stray dog. Okay, he's right though. You're wasting your time. What do I do?
3人の写真。
違う。興ざめだな。
うん？
お？
あんたにとって必要なのは。
Did I? Oh. Okay. Oh! Madarame's smoke darkened a tiny bit. Something must have changed. Madarame.
Positive. どうした？
What's wrong?
ああ。なあ。
Are you acting like this on purpose? Ah, darn.
まだらめ。
If you have something to say, then just say it.
Negative.
I don't know. After all that, I get the silent treatment. I don't know what to do. Pathetic.
Positive.
He like shut out really fast. Okay, if you would just say it, Oh, this isn't good.
よし。まだらめ。
Okay. This isn't looking hot for us, okay?
しくじったか。
No, 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 no. No, it's fine, it's fine.
3人
I
の
don't
写
think
真。
it's this.
そうか。
かが。
No. I don't think I'm gonna get it. Is it this one?
死体はなかった。
Okay, well. I
なんだ。
am
何かざわつく。
am I failing or is this like
わからない。何も見えない。
Oh, this isn't good.
そうか。
Oh, I failed. I absolutely failed that.
見誤ったな。
Okay, hold on. Definitely failed. I mean, but okay, we're gonna go with this because I'm just like I don't know. Okay, I shot him a questioning look.
俺の話だ。どうやらお前を買いかぶっていたようだ。
I guess I overestimated you. That's all.
どういう意味だ。
Oh
お前
boy.
が何を知りたいのか、どういうつもりで話しているのかが伝わってこない。まあ、お前にとってはその程度だということだろうな。
Okay. With that, he rose from his chair and left the room. I heard the door slam shut and realized I had screwed up. I was too intimidated, and so I lost my focus. In order to read someone, I needed to take control. Even if it wasn't possible to fully dominate Madarame, I was supposed to hold my ground. Overpowered me. Ah, okay. Cursing quietly, I dug my nails into my eyelid. Ow. So, basically, ultimately, Madarame's assault on the Takasato Gumi went off without a hitch. With Sakaki and Tono both dead, the Takasato Gumi was as good as gone. I thought Madarame would lose interest after that, but he suddenly declared he would take over as leader. Yeah, this is definitely the bad ending. Most of the surviving gang members celebrated his return. Since someone was around to oppose him, he easily took charge of the Takasato Gumi. And of course, I was right there with him. I'd screwed up his euphoric episode, but he still kept me around. A year later, the gang, now known as the Madarame Gumi, ruled Shinkomi with an iron fist. All residents were provided with free food and housing. This alone might sound great, but it came with a price. All residents were web-tagged, along with restrictions on speech and behavior, plus internet, email, and phone call moderate. Well, that's great. A month after the Madarame Gumi announced their new rules, all Shinkomi residents were given a grace period in which to decide whether to leave the city or stay. As a result, about one-third chose to leave, but the majority stayed in Shinkomi. Part of it was because so many people were impoverished. Since the new government promised food and housing, they stood to benefit. But the crime rate only got worse. Assaults and murder spiked, as did child trafficking deaths, scams, and suicides. There was so much going on, the mass media stopped covering it. The root cause was due to Madarame's total disinterest in government. I bet, yeah, governing. On the contrary, he seemed to be trying to create a lawless state. And as for Towa, oh boy. Oh wow, this looks great.
Yeah.
Oh? Blood gushed from the man's slit throat as he let out a gurgling cry. His hands and feet were strapped to the chair, so there was no escape. The blood that poured from his neck was dazzlingly bright red, dripping all the way to the floor. The man fell out of his chair and crashed to the floor. He spasmed as blood streamed from his throat, and I watched for a while, then licked the blood from my knife. The taste of raw life danced on my tongue, staining my sneer scarlet. He was a member of the Madarame Gumi, but more critically, he was a traitor caught cooperating with the insurrectionist faction. We tried to get him to leak intel about them, but he wouldn't spill the beans, so Madarame lost his patience and ordered his execution. As Euphoria, I'd heard my fair share of people, but I had never taken lives. Until Madarame commanded it, that is. Only after I joined the Madarame Gumi did I experience murder for the first time. And as it turned out, it was just as easy as I had always imagined. Especially for someone like me with no fear of death. After that, I never hesitated again. Perhaps the only reason I never killed anyone before was because I was convinced it was a boundary I wasn't supposed to cross. But now I had crossed over to the other side.
結局何の情報も得られずじまいか。まあいい。
Arms folded, Madarame walked up beside me. I looked over at him, blood splattered on my cheek, still holding the knife.
小太郎たちが探してる。時間の問題だ。
だろうな。
He snorted unamused, then he looked back at me and his lips curled in a smirk. Unable to endure the ache welling inside me, I began to tremble. My fever forced its way out through a sigh from my lips.
またか。
He scoffed at me. But I didn't care. I just wanted to see more blood. I wanted to bathe in it, lick it, smell it. Ever since I started killing, I started to develop these intense urges every now and then. I never knew when it would strike, but when it did, I would quickly lose control. And lately it was happening more and more frequently. The thick smell of blood filled the room. My brain was frying, melting. Oh boy, here we go. The strength drained from my legs, but Madarame put an arm around me before they could give out.
ほら、しっかりしろ。
Breathing heavily, I clung to him with both hands.
まだらめ。
なんだ。
欲しい。
Ah, yes. He looked at me in silence, eyes narrowed.
こらえしょうがないな。
Oh, yep, here we go. He muttered quietly, then shoved me bodily to the floor. As I lay there on my back, I could feel myself sweating and blushing even though it wasn't even warm. Then he straddled my hips and kissed me roughly. His tongue prodded the roof of my mouth, then entwined itself with my own. As we kissed, he deftly slipped the knife from my limp hand and slashed my arm. I flinched hard and our lips pulled apart slightly. I hate that this CG is so pretty. Impatiently, I looked over at the spot where he'd cut me, and a smile crept up on my face. Then I brought my arm to my lips and eagerly sucked up the blood. Madarame watched me for a moment, then cut my shirt open and ran his tongue over my newly bare chest. As he looked at the raised skin, he trailed the knife over my body like a paintbrush over a canvas. Every time he cut me, I let out a nasally whimper. Whenever the raw impulses got too strong to control, I'd always beg Madarame for sex. In addition to my old scars, my body was now covered in dozens of brand new scars added by none other than Madarame himself. As he teased my chest scars and nipples with his tongue, he calmly watched my reaction. Then he used the tip of the knife to slowly slice at the top layer of my skin. When he looked up, I looked back at him with a feverish eye. This was enough to convey a message. I wanted more. At last his eyes took on a violet glint. Smiling faintly, he licked his lips. Then he slowly lifted the knife and looked to me for confirmation. I exhaled hungrily, then I nodded. The next instant, without any further hesitation, he swung the knife down into the scar in the center of my chest. I choked out a scream as my body spasmed hard. The tip of the blade had pierced a full centimeter down. Slowly, he dragged the knife down my torso. The pain of splitting flesh was intensely sharp. My moans pushed past my gritted teeth as I clawed at the ground. But though my body flailed to escape the pain, I didn't try to stop him. At last he stopped just above my navel, and with a twisted grin he let out a breathy chuckle. Pleased, he gazed down at the fresh cut bisecting my chest anew. Blood as bright as paint trickled out to the left and right, staining my skin. Briefly, he pulled the knife out. Then he set the tip just beneath my navel, pressed slightly, and continued south. Ooh. Tears flowed from my widened eyes as I moaned in simultaneous pain and pleasure.
狂ってるな。
He muttered through labored breaths, smirking faintly. This was something I always asked him to do to me. Naturally, as soon as it was over, he took me straight to the doctor for medical treatment. And once the wound healed up, I would find myself begging for it all over again, like an addict. The doctor warned us it was dangerous, but it was precisely that thrill of mortal danger that he and I both enjoyed. Then, for the briefest of moments, Madarame closed his eyes. Instantly, I stopped trembling, grabbed the knife from the floor, and tried to cut him. The horizontal slash barely grazed his shirt. My bewitched blushing had disappeared, replaced by a fierce, teeth-gritting glare. He took one look at me and chuckled. This too always happened when we indulged my kink. He would cut me, and then I would try to kill him. It was proof of the contradicting feelings inside me. I wanted Madarame, and I wanted him to hurt me, but at the same time I despised him. Not that he had changed at all since the old days. He so quietly carried out his vision with calculated precision. Unlike him, I was different now. Under his orders, I had turned into a murderer. He had rubbed off on me, and yet I hadn't rubbed off on him at all. This drove me downright insane. The more I changed, the bigger the gulf between us. At first it bothered me, but at some point I started resenting him for it outright. How could he ruin me without changing even a little? It made me want to kill him. Maybe then I wouldn't have to feel this way. He looked at me with his emotionless eyes, then snatched the knife away. He pressed the blade against my throat, gradually began to push. The sharp point sank into my tender skin a fraction of an inch, and blood began to trickle forth. Yes, that's part of the game. He whispered at me, then with the knife still at my throat, he straightened up. With his free hand, he grabbed my leg, spread it to the side, and moved his pelvis in between. With the blood from my wound as lube, he pressed his crimson cock to my and shoved his way in. My back arched and fresh blood poured from my chest wound. Madarame looked down, put a hand on my hip, and started pumping. Every jostle, the knife maliciously teased my throat. Tears sprang to my eye, and I whimpered at the ceiling as he stretched out. He bent forward to kiss and lick at the wound on my chest. Desperately, I shook my head. His mouth was now as red as my chest, and more blood flowed every time he leaned in. The thick smell of copper only turned me on all the more. My blurry gaze moved slowly, and I reached out to the knife with an unsteady hand. It was dominating my entire body, and my fingers wouldn't tighten. I nearly dropped the knife, but managed to grasp it just in time, and I pointed the tip at him. For a moment, a hostile glint returned to my feverish gaze. In response, Madarame fell still, almost like he was waiting for me to make my move. However, with a frustrated growl, I grimaced and tossed the knife. Then I grabbed him by the neck and pulled him close. Our lips collided. As the fever gradually faded, my body began to tremble. I had lost a lot of blood, and now my complexion was as white as a sheet. Madarame pulled out, straightened up, and walked over to the shelf. He returned carrying a large bath towel, which he wrapped around my body. This had happened countless times before, so he knew how to handle it. He then lifted me into his arms and peered deep into my eye. Shivering, I opened my eye just a crack and looked up at him. He gazed back at my ghostly pale face.
殺されてもいい。お前にならな。
I'm sure you would. With that low growl, he started walking. Together we left the corpse behind and headed to the on-site doctor's office. Enduring the freezing cold, I looked up at Madarame. I was feeling chilly due to the blood loss, so by contrast he felt like he was on fire. How many more times would I experience this? And which time would be the last? No one knew the answer, not even me. And I was afraid of the unknown. I was so dependent on Madarame, I'd lost the ability to decide for myself. I was stumbling blind through the darkness, and he was my only guiding light. I couldn't kill him because I needed him. The moment he walked into my life, I was already beyond saving. As my consciousness faded, I slowly closed my eye. Woo! I adore you for trying to kill me. Now hurry up and make it happen. Kill me, Towa. Okay, so sorry, I'm processing. We're gonna get the good ending. I'm gonna try for the good ending. While this lovely song plays in the background, sorry. While this lovely song plays in the background here, oh man. So, is that a hint as to how I'm supposed to get the good ending? Like, is that Madarame's like real desire is to have Towa like gut him? Like, you know, but I can see, okay, so, but I do kind of understand. So in the third session, like the third part of the euphoric session, the moment Towa begins to become erratic, that's when Madarame gets upset. Because Madarame like fully believes that Towa can get it out of him. And that's why he was upset when Towa couldn't do it. So interesting. Really interesting. This route was like buck wild. I don't want to give my thoughts until I see the good ending though, because we didn't find out enough. Like, as in, like, we found out a good amount, but we didn't find out till we haven't found out the whole majingle-lingle-lingle-lingle. So we're gonna see. I won't speak too much until I won't speak too much more until we finish the good ending, because otherwise I'm responding to an incomplete ending, if that makes sense. Okay. We're gonna let the lovely song finish, and we're gonna step back in. I am unsatisfied. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. That ending, that bad ending was just, okay, that bad ending was bussin'. Not like bussin' like, but you know, that was like, whoa. I don't expect any less from nitro+chiral. Nitro+chiral bad endings are like, whoa. Yeah. Oh boy. If you want to feel hopeless, play all the bad endings of every nitro+chiral game ever. You're gonna be like, you know, darkness is real. So, okay, I see what I made them. Okay, I see. I understand now. Positive. Okay. So. Okay, so I absolutely just. I shouldn't have continued. I should have ended it. Because if it continues, I get the bad end regardless. Okay. Okay, kids. Give me one moment. We're getting the good ending. See you in a hot minute. I knew I'd need this. Give me a moment, children. Welcome back, everybody. Let's get that good ending. I hope.
Negative.
I hope I didn't screw this up. Part 84. So
もういい。わかった。最初から決まってた。あんたが望むものはそうだ。気が済んだか？
I guess. After we finished the conversation, Madarame crushed his cigarette butt in the ashtray on the floor, then exhaled the last of the smoke. I nodded, averted my gaze, and let out a heavy sigh. I tried to probe deeper, but it was no use. He felt no hesitation, just as I thought. He had no secret desires or ambitions. But while he didn't talk much, I picked up a lot of strong emotions. And the look in his eyes said to me, all I need is you. It intimidated me way more than I ever intimidated him. Okay, I understand. So, in the notebook, the only thing close enough to Towa is the lighter. So I guess that's why we have to stop we can't like delve too deep, because Madarame really just wants Towa. And Towa's not in that notebook during the interrogation, so okay. I understand. Man, he's throwing me for a loop, this guy. Okay, sorry. Let's continue. After the conversation was over, I felt freed from an invisible weight, pinning me in place. Avoiding his gaze, I rose to my feet and walked back to the window. I wanted to feel the night breeze and cool my head a little. However long. Reluctantly, I walked away from the window. The restless feeling I had now subsided. Oh, as he sat in his chair, I approached him, and out of nowhere, he grabbed my arm. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Then he rose to his feet, and before I could regain my balance, he dragged me to the bed. After he flung me onto the mattress, he climbed on top of me and looked into my eye. He was wearing his usual self-assured smirk.
特別な夜だからな。今日ぐらいは優しくしてやる。
Oh? Let's go. My mouth hung open as I struggled to process this.
待てよ、まだら。
He forced his tongue in between my teeth and started feeling around for mine. While he held my head in place with one hand, he slid the other under my shirt. He traced my collarbone to my... then ran his fingers over the large scar bisecting my chest. He dug his nails into the raised skin like he was trying to peel it off. That was all it took to make me shiver. He pulled out his hungry kiss and gasped for breath, moaning. He looked up at me, then ripped my shirt open. Oh, a word. I rolled over and turned my back to him.
言ってろ。
Not like I had any choice in the matter anyway. That being said, the vanilla sex with Madarame was mind-blowing, even if my body's reaction to it freaked me out. But I refused to admit that out loud, since I knew exactly how he would react if I did. Boy. After I passed out, I woke some time later. Pale moonlight streamed in through the window, faintly illuminating the room. Madarame was asleep beside me in bed. I hadn't seen him this unguarded in a long time. When I listened carefully, I could hear his steady breathing. With his eyes closed, his usual self-assured attitude was gone, but he just wasn't the same without his arrogant sneer. Quietly, I sat up and got out of bed. The room was quiet, and a chill rose from the cold concrete beneath my bare feet. Walking naked beneath the moonlight, I approached the table. I was dreaming just now, before I woke up, dreaming of my days at the clinic. Taku and Rei were there, and we were just talking. Normally, I would always forget my dreams after I woke up, but not this time, oddly enough. Looking back, my dream was tinted in sepia tones, like an old photograph from days long past. This, in turn, reminded me of my cell phone. I hadn't touched it since I powered it off last. I grabbed it off the table and turned it on. The screen lit up, and after a moment, a ton of notifs loaded in. Most of them were from Taku and Rei. I'd lived on this side for so long it felt like we didn't even share the same planet. These notifs were the only proof I had that we were part of the same world. They were probably searching for me too. Then, a thought crossed my mind. Should I call them? It was a strange idea. Why would I call them if I didn't miss them or want to go back? Do it. Do it! No, he said. I brought up Taku's address book entry. But before I hit the call button, I stopped myself. And I navigated to Rei's entry, but the same thing happened again. Out of nowhere, my body started shaking. Chills spread up from my feet to my torso, stealing away my body heat. I'm so cold. Normally, I wouldn't even notice the temperature yet. I exhaled quietly, turned my phone off, and set it back on the table. All I could say for sure was this: I was never going back. I just didn't need them anymore. I squeezed my eyes shut, then went back to bed. Madarame was still asleep. I gazed at his face, then walked to the window. As the cold night air blew in, I looked up at the moon glowing brightly against the inky sky. A still image from my dream slowly overlaid itself upon reality. It grew blurrier and blurrier until eventually it disappeared into the darkness. After it was gone, all that remained was the moon. Slow damage. Wow, I haven't seen that in a while. Alright, kids. Is it time? It's time. Let's bust them. The next morning was rainy. The sky was blanketed in thick, dark clouds. Today was the day of the promotion ceremony. Cars packed the street outside the Takasato estate, while gang members filed in through the front gates. The passers-by on the street all watched from a safe distance. Let's go.
トンネルの方で何かが爆発したぞ。
Just then, a massive explosion filled the air. A wave of panic and shouting rippled through the crowd.
あっちは高里組の事務所じゃないのか。
おい、どうなってる？
わかりません。爆発があったみたいで。
そんなことは分かってんだよ。誰がやったって聞いてるんだ。
Wake up! Wake up from your sleep! Wake up! Sorry. People shouted back and forth. The VIPs all hastily returned to their cars. The grunts had their hands full investigating the explosion, and the safety of executives and their numbers were rapidly dwindling. Meanwhile, Madarame and I were hiding out in the alley with a clear view of the Takasato estate, watching it all go down.
そろそろか。
He murmured, his eyes fixed on the commotion. Then he raised his cell phone to his
分
ear.
かった。
He quickly ended the call, then turned and looked over his shoulder at me.
孝太郎からだ。行くぞ。
Let's go, baby! With that, he ran out of the alley. I quickly followed after him. Panicked, Takasato goons were swarming in and out of the front gates. Madarame leapt out into their midst.
なんだてめえは。
Sorry. He threw out attacks one after another. Likewise, I joined the fray myself. Some of our opponents had knives or guns, but once Madarame got within close range, they were as good as done for. Fortunately, Ichi's diversion appeared to have served its purpose because there weren't too many. After we'd wiped them all out, Madarame casually strolled toward the estate. Let's go, besties. But word of our arrival must have traveled quickly because we barely made it a few steps before more goons arrived to intercept us. Oh boy, yeah, these guys won't be too hard. They're already afraid. Madarame dodged each of their attacks, then took them down without a single misstep. His expression never wavered, even as he was curb stomping them. A man shouted at us. He had a gun trained on me. The next thing I knew, we were surrounded by a group wielding wooden swords and metal pipes. I had to guess these grunts had just returned from investigating the explosion. One of the men lunged forward and raised his pipe high in the air. But before he could strike, Madarame kicked him in the gut. Grimacing, the man fell to the ground.
死にたいのか。
Rolling his eyes at the group surrounding us, Madarame closed the distance between himself and the gunman, then sent him flying with a punch. Another man came recklessly charging in. Madarame dodged and struck back. The rest of our opponents backed away as the two of us stood back to back.
ここから仕上げといくか。
Ooh! He shot forward, plunging into the crowd. The gunman staggered to his feet and raised the gun at Madarame. But Madarame was fighting the whole group single-handedly, and he was too busy to notice. I pulled the gun out of the back of my belt, clicked off the safety, and fired. Woo! The bullet missed, and I made the gunman flinch. Madarame heard the gunshot, ran over to the gunman, and decked him in the face. After he went down, Madarame smirked over his shoulder at me. The thugs all lunged at him in a frenzy, but he was untouchable. Using one as a meat shield, he fought off the armed goons. But no matter how we took out, no matter how many we took out, more kept showing up. I was helping too, but we were still nowhere close to the front entrance of the mansion.
面倒だ。
Madarame muttered quietly.
どうする？
Just then, angry shouts broke out a short distance away. Kotaro! A commanding voice rang out. It was Kotaro. He was knocking down his opponents with overwhelming strength, nearly on par with Madarame.
うぜんだよこれこのクソザコどもが全然足りねえぞふざけてんのか
You're an NPC! As he shouted and laughed, he glanced in our direction for the briefest of moments. Meanwhile, the Takasato goons were turning red with rage. He must have provoked them on purpose to distract them away from us, and sure enough, they took the bait.
おれもっと来いや
Let's go, besties. Madarame watched with a grin, then ran toward the mansion. Shaking off our pursuers, I chased after him. We're here, besties. I wouldn't feel bad if, like in the bad ending, Sakaki and Tono kick it. Because they can suck it. I have no affection for Sakaki after Rei's out. Because it's like Sakaki sponsors the money matches. So I'm just like, I see. By the time we reached the front entrance, no one dared challenge Madarame to a fight. They all watched him from a distance, whispering fearfully to each other.
さて行くか
Let's go, bestie. Y'all better move. Ignoring the pouring rain, he strolled into the mansion. Of course, I thought we knocked these fools out. Of course, more Takasato goons were waiting inside. The second they spotted Madarame, they all drew their guns.
遠野はどこだ
But despite being held at gunpoint, Madarame didn't even blink. Naturally, no one was willing to answer him. Without taking his shoes off, he walked into the house and down the hall. As he passed through the crowd, he smacked away the drop guns like they were merely buzzing flies. For all intents and purposes, his guard was down, and yet no one fired at him. Grunts were all paralyzed in place. Maybe they'd seen him fighting earlier and decided they didn't want a piece. So Madarame walked off like he hadn't even noticed them. At the end of the hall, we found a reception area reserved for banquets and meetings. Hey! Madarame used both hands to fling the sliding door open in a single motion. Inside, there were no signs of human life. He walked to the center of the room, stopped, and tilted his head up. A portrait of the deceased leader hung in the space just over the door.
墓場から蘇ってきたのか
A sharp voice rang out across the silent room. We turned to find Tono standing there, gun drawn.
そんなに悔しかったか加賀のことが
No. Madarame cocked his head condescendingly.
加賀
敵討ちに来たんだろう
No. He laughed in spite of himself and slowly shook his head.
バカバカしい
それならわざわざ戻ってきた理由は
お前ら全員気に食わないそれだけだ
あの港でのことがなくても加賀はいずれ組の発展の障害となっていたはずだ
Tono spoke quietly as he kept the gun trained on Madarame.
俺たちは金を稼がなきゃならない生きていけないからなだから考えを変える必要
We're
が
a
あるんだ
business. Literally, this is the whole. So we want to educate the people, but we're also a business. Like literally, the American school system. Like, sorry.
加賀の言う通りにしていたら俺たちは終わる加賀はともかくお前を敵に回すつもりはなかったお前は有利な方につく人間だとばかり思っていたんだが違
Why
っ
are you
たようだ
talking still? He doesn't care.
くだらない俺は俺がやりたいように動いてるだけだお前たちの思惑なんてどうでもいい
Work.
だろうよだからお前も消えてもらうしかないな
I hope you perish.
その向こう水の強さだけは戦力として魅力的なんだが仕方がない
やってみろ。やれるもんならな。
Oh boy, here we go. Madarame sneered, his eyes glinting like a predator who had set sights on his prey. Tono looks like he's about to pass out. Tono glared back fiercely, his trigger finger tightened. Likewise, Madarame plunged his hand into his inner jacket pocket. Woo! I hope you perish. Blood beaded on Madarame's cheek in a horizontal line. As for Tono, perish! A scarlet stain was spreading across his jacket. Me, though, I didn't even bat a lash. When the two of them fired their guns, Tono dodged slightly, but Madarame didn't move a muscle. He predicted that Tono would try to evade the shot, so he purposely fired at an angle. In the end, it was fear that settled the score. Madarame had no fear of death. He was purely focused on finishing off his opponent. But when the time came, Tono got cold feet. He had lost the psychological tug-of-war. He's like weak. Homeboy weak, you know? That's why we're like, yeah, he can perish. Yes, perish. Madarame lowered his smoking gun and watched coldly as Tono sank to his knees.
昔から変わってないな。最後の最後で爪が甘い。お前の悪いところだ。だからあの時も俺を殺しきれなかったんだよ。
Ah.
この俺が
You mean yourself. Oh, I'm so satisfied. Frothing red at the mouth, Tono groaned and slumped to the floor. Madarame stared down at him emotionlessly. Alright. Are we taking care of the other one? So he can suck it too. After that, we wiped out the remnants of the Takasato Gumi. Apparently, Kotaro had finished off all the guys outside. Yeah, because they all, like, are NPCs. They suck.
あとは榊か。
Yep. Where the homie at?
逃げたんじゃないのか。
いや。
Madarame pulled his phone out of his jacket pocket and stared at the screen like he was waiting for something. A short while later, it started to ring. He answered and it switched to speaker mode.
終わったか。
Oh. I could hear Mayu's voice on the other end of the line.
どういうことだ。
Madarame gestured to Tono's lifeless body with the barrel of his gun.
榊はこいつよりもずる賢い。俺がここへ来たと知った時点で、メンツを潰してでも一度新興味を出るだろうと踏んだんだ。
that's true.
だから襲撃前に情報をリークしてやった。逃げたいのなら手伝ってやろうと思ってな。榊の動向はエイジに追わせていた。案の定、車で本土へ向かおうとしていたらしい。ポイントに配置した眉に見晴らしのいい橋を渡っているところを狙撃させた。
You go, Mayu.
眉が。あいつはイカれてるが、イカれてるなりに一つくらいは特技があるってことだ。
It's true. It's true. We're all crazy in this game.
でも、榊がトンネルを使ったらどうするつもりだったんだ。
それはない。最初の爆発はトンネルへの道路を封鎖する意味もあった。
Work. He tossed his gun to the floor.
なんともあっけない終わり方だったな。
I am moved. He looked over at me, smiled, then shrugged. Slow damage. Work! Oh my gosh. Whew. Okay. Alright, kids. What we doing now? With those fools dead, what we doing? Following both the loss of Sakaki and Tono, the Takasato Gumi descended into chaos. after the gang was functionally destroyed, life in Shinkomi changed drastically. Thus far, Shinkomi was ruled by and entirely dependent upon the Takasato Gumi. Without that support, the city briefly descended into lawlessness. But the gang's arch-nemesis, the mainland police force, saw this as the perfect opportunity to swoop in. They announced that they would be installing their men in Shinkomi to enforce mainland laws. The unrest in Shinkomi was far from over, but it was just the calm before the storm of political revolution. So Madarame and I decided to lay low for a while until things calmed down. Wow! I never went back to the clinic, but I managed to acquire enough art supplies to paint Madarame. Wow, this one's pretty. I made use of rocks, dead leaves, scraps of fabric, anything I could find, and as a result, the painting turned out radically different from any of my other pieces. Wow, that one's pretty. I'm surprised they did like a blue and a blue, like with Rei and Madarame. The blue is kind of similar. I'll double check that, maybe I'm wrong. Slowly but surely, Shinkomi started to function like any other city. After the Takasato Gumi fell apart, I never did see Taku or Rei again. They reached out to me a handful of times, but I never answered their calls or responded to their messages. Then Madarame told me he was planning to leave town. Naturally, I said I'd go with him. The pier.
この町に未練なんてものは何もないからな。
新興海を出たらどうする？
He looked away and mulled it over.
そうだな。適当にふらついて旅でもするか。
Road trip, have mercy.
旅？日本一周とか。
どこでもいい。なんなら世界を一周するか。一箇所にとどまるのは性に合わないからな。
At this, I smirked and closed my eyes.
ついてくよ。あんたが行くところならどこへでも。
Work, power couple. You are the only person in the world who I consider my match. You want what I want, feel what I feel. With you, I'll never be bored. You feel the same way, don't you? Oh! Oh boy. A few years later, after we traveled around Japan, we decided to leave the country. And from there, work. Wait, is he blonde again? A rock-hard fist sank into my cheek. Who is this? I staggered backwards a few steps, but quickly regained my balance and looked back at my opponent. Briefly, I turned my head to the side and spat out the blood in my mouth. The sealed underground space was filled with the sound of cheering, or rather jeering. With nowhere to disperse, the body heat from the crowd had created a humid haze. Meanwhile, I stared down my opponent and attempted to gauge the right timing for my next attack. It was a wild basement party held in a town far from Shinkomi. Whoever managed to stay standing would win the match. However, killing your opponent was strictly forbidden. It reminded me of Shinkomi's death matches, except it was held once a week on Friday nights. Sorry. The event was also formally sponsored, and the winner of each match would take home a cash prize. Madarame and I had both entered. Okay. As I stood there, my opponent lost patience with me and swung his massive fist. I dodged sideways and a gust of wind brushed past like someone had just pitched a fastball. If the punch had connected, it would have hurt, but at the same time it left him wide open. So I used that opportunity to get within close range. He tried to grab me, I dodged. I swiped with his other hand, I ducked and moved. Oh, he swiped with his other hand, I ducked and moved around to his side. Now that I was in his blind spot, I swung an uppercut into his jaw. Work. Oh! He tilted backwards, I slammed my knee into his newly unguarded torso, then threw out another punch to the face. Groaning in pain, he doubled over. With a spin for momentum, I slammed my foot hard into his face. His eyes rolled back into his head and he fell flat onto his back. There was a moment of silence, and then the whole basement exploded in cheers and angry shouting. Breathing heavily, I stared down stoically at my opponent. Once it was confirmed that the other guy wasn't getting back up, I turned on my heel. Hands reached out at me from the crowd, striking at my head and shoulders, but I ignored them and kept walking. In the darkness ahead, I could see a man leaning against the wall, having a smoke. When I walked up, he smiled at me, a cigarette between his lips. Okay, work. He's blonde again.
連戦連勝、お互いに負け知らずだ。ああ。
I plucked the cigarette from Madarame's lips and slid it between my own. I made eye contact with him as I took a drag, then turned my head to exhale the smoke. As we gazed at each other, he grinned, eyes twinkling playfully. Both of us were dotted with scrapes and bruises all over our faces. We took part in this journey every Friday, always racking up new injuries before our old ones could heal.
不完全燃焼か?
少し。
Not
殴られ足りないか。
あんたとじゃなきゃ燃えない。
Spicy. At this, he chuckled.
後でやってやる。
Word. Just then, the crowd erupted in cheers behind us. The next match had begun. Now my victory was old news, and the audience wasn't even looking at me anymore. I was waiting for that. This is really pretty. I leaned in and pressed my lips deeply against Madarame's. His tongue licked at the cuts that had formed in my mouth during my most recent match. The pain and coppery taste was intoxicating, and my lust swelled. I bit down hard on his tongue, and he bit back. He grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanked my head away, and stared deep into my eye. His predatory gaze put me in a trance.
お前となら退屈はしない。
He smiled faintly.
お前もそうだろう。
Ooh. I blinked slowly, then averted my gaze. I could envision the feeling of a fist sinking into flesh. I loved the feeling of bones creaking, of meat being crushed. Whether it was my opponent's or my own, it always made me feel alive. Our life together didn't need to be expressed in words. He was the only person who could truly understand it anyway. Madarame made me feel human again. And while he never said it out loud, he probably felt the same way about me too. This CG is so like utterly romantic. Excuse me. Wow. 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 Oh my gosh. Wow, that was a journey and a half. Oh my gosh. Oh. Whoa. So many emotions. Okay. I'm gonna let the song play. I'm gonna let the credits roll. I have a lot of feelings, so I'm gonna let it roll, and then I'll talk to you guys at the title screen. Sounds about. Well, that's a sign if I've ever seen anything, huh? Our painting has become far more colorful, a lot more interesting. And the dolls have moved, which means we've unlocked the true route to Jiede's route. So, Madarame's route has put me through it. As you guys saw, as you guys watched, you guys probably laughing at me, being like, you are so stupid. but now that I finished the route, man, Madarame Madarame has been like such a fascinating character because, and like again, I was scolding him just because, man, I was so tired. I was so tired all the time. I was panicked all the time. Madarame, out of the first Takure and him, out of the three, ironically, Madarame, his entire being for the most part, there's only one desire Madarame has, despite what he says and doesn't say. It seems like his only desire is Towa. Even during the euphoric episode. Even when Madarame is disappointed in the failed euphoric episode, in the bad ending, he still services Towa and Towa's desires. And that's still the same in the good ending. Madarame likes to pretend he likes to do what he wants, which he does. But when it comes to Towa, he's very willing to accommodate Towa, basically. Basically everything he does to Towa or for Towa is what Towa wants, what's good for Towa, what is quotation marks best for Towa. He wants to make sure Towa has his autonomy. He wants to make sure that Towa is wholly like himself. Which is why he's very angry at Taku for, like, even though Taku's intentions were good, Taku is trying to basically eliminate the things that happened to Towa by giving him false memories. And like I said, I can understand how Taku feels, but falsely, lying to Towa, who's already very, 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 very damaged, slow damage, is usually not good. When a person mentally breaks in that way, it's like, Taku's not like a psychologist, he's just he's just a physical doctor. He really shouldn't be like, and also he has like an agenda, like when it comes to Towa. Like, he cares for Towa, and he probably thinks he has Towa's best interest, but Taku wants Towa to be happy, even if Towa himself doesn't want to be happy. And that's like the biggest thing in Rei and Taku's routes is that, they care for Towa and they love Towa, but at the end of the day, it's like, if Towa hurts himself, they will resist it. Whereas Madarame doesn't resist that. He accepts Towa very wholly because they claim they're very much like each other. Madarame's CGs were drawn so romantically, even the ones that are not romantic, they look romantic. They look so romantic. And even though Madarame's route is very bittersweet because Towa decides that he has to leave behind Taku and Rei, and chooses Madarame in that way, like he wholly commits to Madarame. It was like Madarame's whole story with Towa is like extremely romantic. They're essentially they're essentially soulmates. They're essentially childhood friends, you know. Soulmate behavior, like you know what I'm saying. But oh man, that was like so good. Sorry, that the writing in Madarame's route is really good, and I feel like we truly see Towa for how he is. Again, how Madarame says, we see Towa. Sorry, we too many T's. We see Towa truly as he is, was, will be, as a full human being. At the very end, Towa says, he makes me feel human, and even if Madarame doesn't say so, I know he feels the same way about me. Which is so, again, so romantic. Like, you know, Madarame likes to pretend like he's not romantic, but I'm like, bro, I doki, bro. I was like, oh, okay, work. So, that was so good. Oh my gosh, that was so good. And I know I kept making jokes that I was like, I need to get through this so I can meet Fujieda. Honestly, I doubted myself, as in like, I had a feeling, I was like, am I gonna like Madarame more than Fujieda? Only time will tell. I haven't started Fujieda's route yet, so we're gonna see. We're gonna see how that goes. But I have, by the end of this route, I have grown a lot of affection for Madarame, because now that we've gotten to the core of Madarame, even if it seems very aggressive and I get stressed out, Madarame is nothing. Like, I know I mentioned, like, I was having flashbacks to, Mink. Although they, on the surface, look the same, beneath the surface, they're not the same at all. Madarame truly understands Towa and truly loves Towa. He just doesn't think it. At least not in, you know, or, how do I say? He doesn't express it. He likes to be like, oh, if you bore me, I'm gonna, like, get rid of you. Or, like, I'm just gonna ditch you. And I'm just like, I think you're a liar. But, oh man, but Madarame's devotion to Towa is so, again, so deep and so romantic. I'm just like, dang! Like, and I think that's the true, like, appeal of Madarame. Despite the fact that he's essentially a yandere, you know, to an extent, you know, not a full yandere, but like he wasn't like, how do I say? He wasn't like fully forcing himself on Towa and like Towa resisting. It was just like Towa was accepting it, but also like mad that he was accepting it. It's a lot of like internal conflict in this chapter too. It's a lot of like a fight with oneself, a fight with one's identity, etc., all that good stuff. But oh, that was so good. It was so good. Oh my gosh. Exploration of the human condition in fiction. Oh my gosh, so good. Also, Tono and Sakaki both died, and that's good. Because I hate both of them after both. You know, at first I was just like, you know, Sakaki alright, but then I found that the Sakaki is also garbage. He just seems to have some weird affection for Towa, which I have a feeling has to do with his mama. Towa's mama. But hopefully in Fujieda's route, all my questions will be answered. Because girl, I wanna know. I wanna know what to do. You know. Anywho, so. Alright. Man, I went through, all my emotions went up and down and sideways and backwards and rolled around in dirt and blah. Woo! These two are buck wild. And Towa looks so pretty in his blonde hair. Oh, it's great. The reward of the pain of this chapter, 1000% was worth it. I'm surprised I didn't cry, but I think it's just because it was so, again, so romantic. Even in the bad ending, that last CG was so romantic. Like, it was so, it was presented romantic, and I'm just like, man. Ooh. They really said soulmates. Okay, anyway. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm almost done with slow damage, y'all. I just have Fujieda left. I just have the true route left. Oh my gosh, I'm starting to get really sad. I don't want to, like, you know, I was just like, I gotta get through slow damage, but now that I'm here, I'm about to start the last route. I'm getting really sad. I don't want it to end anymore. No, I'm getting sad. I really enjoyed the game. Oh gosh, I'm having such a good time. I don't want to stop. No, I don't want to leave Shinkomi. But okay, yeah. So next playthrough, we're time to romance Fujieda, I guess. Oh gosh, I'm afraid though. I'm like afraid. But Fujieda is the most mysterious. He barely says it. He's barely said anything. He's only said something in Taku's route. So I'm curious to see. All right, everybody. Thank you again for joining me. This has been so fun, and I'm gonna be real sad when we finally finish the game. But we've got one more point to go, and our painting is getting a lot more colorful, so let's just see what we can do. Oh my gosh. Okay, so do not forget my podcast, You Can Smooch Tho, about all things boys love and other related items, is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. Will be available on YouTube soon. I just need to get my booty up. Okay, that sounded really bad in the context of this video. I just gotta work that booty and get it back on the channel. So get it up on the channel. I'm just making this worse, aren't I? So anyway, so please don't forget to check out season 1 in preparation of season 2, which is on its way. It's on its way. We're gonna make it work. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, stay well. Thank you so much again. Love slow damage. Keeps loving slow damage and Towa and friends. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. Night night.